Ethan let Jessica keep her arm linked through his as they slowly ambled through the manor grounds. What Ethan didn't see was the moment Jessica turned her head away, an irrepressible, satisfied little smile touching her lips. By 6:30 in the evening, the sun had long set and twilight quietly descended. The manor grounds were nearly empty, feeling remarkably spacious and tranquil. Jessica simply kept Ethan company, strolling once around the entire estate. They walked very, very slowly, chatting as they went, the atmosphere light and pleasant. Returning toward the main building, Ethan suddenly noticed a swing set on an empty patch of lawn beside the manor. For some reason, a wave of playfulness washed over him, and he went over and sat down. "Can you push me?" Ethan asked, looking at Jessica, who had been about to sit beside him. "Oh, all right." Jessica felt a flicker of disappointment. She had wanted to swing with Ethan, but since he'd asked, she could only walk around behind him and gently start pushing the swing. Sitting on the swing, drifting in the evening breeze, Ethan felt a surge of joy, an easy smile spreading across his face. Seeing him looking so content, Jessica's disappointment vanished instantly, and her expression brightened. "Actually, when I have free time, I often like to sit on this swing by myself, feel the breeze, look in the distance, and just enjoy the quiet time alone," Jessica said softly, still pushing the swing gently. "I used to love swinging when I was little, too," Ethan mused, feeling the soft evening wind brush against him. He closed his eyes slightly, feeling an indescribable sense of ease. "If you like swinging, you can come here every day. I can push you every day," Jessica said, lowering her head slightly. Her gaze rested on Ethan's handsome face, her gentle eyes filled with immense fondness. "I couldn't ask you to do that," Ethan opened his eyes, saying with some embarrassment. Having a beautiful woman like Jessica push him on a swing every day. If anyone found out, they'd probably scold him for not knowing how to treat a lady. "What's the big deal?" "I want to." Jessica tilted her chin up slightly, humming softly, the doting look on her face becoming even more blatant. Unfortunately, Ethan didn't look up at that moment and missed her expression. "All right, you can stop pushing now. You must be tired. Sit down and rest for a bit." Okay." Jessica nodded immediately, sitting down beside him with a look of delight. Ethan leaned back against the swing seat, closing his eyes contentedly, savoring the tranquil moment. Jessica turned her head to look at him, her clear, shining eyes fixed on him, a faint smile playing on her lips. Ever since she was young, whenever she was alone, she would often sit on this swing. Most of the time, she'd sit here thinking about Ethan, especially sometimes late at night, when thoughts of him kept her awake. Then she would come out to this swing, quietly thinking about Ethan all by herself. Sometimes she'd think and think until the sky began to lighten. Countless times she had imagined what it would be like if, one day, Ethan could sit beside her. Just like this, swinging slowly forever and ever. She never expected that today, her wish would actually come true. Looking at Ethan right beside her, she felt a sense of unreality for a moment. At the same time, a quiet joy bloomed in her heart. "This is nice," she murmured softly, then copied Ethan, leaning back against the seat, closing her eyes slightly and basking in the blissful peace. 10 minutes later, a soft night breeze blew past, and Ethan couldn't help but shiver, opening his eyes. "Let's go back inside. Don't want to catch a cold," Ethan said, pulling his clothes tighter around him. He glanced at the girl beside him before getting up and heading towards the manor. "Coming." Jessica watched his back, a gentle smile gracing her stunningly beautiful face, then got up and hurried after him. She reached his side and took his large hand, her fingers intertwining with his, holding on tightly. Only this time, it seemed the strength with which she gripped his hand was even greater. Back inside the manor, they had just sat down when the housekeeper brought over several plates of after-dinner dessert and 2 glasses of juice. Ethan picked up his juice, but before he could take a sip, Jessica's phone beside him rang. Jessica pulled out her phone and saw it was a call from her BFF, Laura. "Hey, Laura, what's up?" Jessica asked. "Jessica, let's go shopping tomorrow. And bring your husband along, so I can meet him." Laura got straight to the point, making her intentions clear. She wanted to see Jessica's husband. She seemed very curious about Ethan. "I really want to see what kind of man could make a staunchly single woman like you decide to get married without hesitation," Laura added. "Tomorrow." Jessica glanced at Ethan beside her, hesitated for a moment, then said, "Okay, I'll ask him if he's willing to go." "Great, ask him then. Let me know on WhatsApp later." After hanging up, Jessica turned to look at Ethan beside her. "What's wrong?" Ethan noticed her gaze and looked back at her, puzzled. Since Jessica hadn't put the call on speaker, he hadn't clearly heard their conversation. My BFF wants to go shopping tomorrow, and she said she'd like to meet you too. While we were at it, Jessica looked at him, her eyes showing a hint of apprehension. So, would you be willing to go shopping with us? Why wouldn't I be? Sure, let's go. Ethan nodded, readily agreeing. He didn't have anything else going on anyway. Ever since being laid off, he didn't have to work. Nor did he have to be at Sarah Young's at his beck and call like before. He had plenty of free time. Okay, great. Jessica let out a soft sigh of relief, a joyful smile spreading across her face. The thought of taking the man she liked to meet her best friend filled her heart with uncontrollable anticipation. She had liked Ethan for 17 years. If she could, she wished she could announce to the whole world that Ethan was her husband, that he was the boy Jessica had liked for 17 years. She wished everyone knew about her and Ethan's marital relationship. Unfortunately, although she and Ethan were married now, she understood that the current Ethan didn't truly belong to her. But, at least legally, they were a legitimate husband and wife. And now, Ethan had decided not to reconcile. She had also decided to work hard to make Ethan fall in love with her. Maybe someday in the future, they could truly be like a real couple. Together, openly. It was 10 a.m., bright and sunny. After breakfast, Ethan and Jessica left the manor in a Lamborghini. About 15 minutes later, they pulled into the Green Valley Mall, the largest shopping center in the area. Ethan steered the car into the parking garage, found a spot, and they both got out. Ready? Ethan asked, looking at Jessica, who stood gracefully by the car door. Jessica wore a loose, light blue short-sleeve top with a white skirt and a matching light blue sun hat. The whole ensemble was fresh and clean, hinting at an effortless socialite lifestyle. Combined with her stunningly beautiful features, she was truly eye-catching. Ethan, in contrast, was dressed much more casually in a white t-shirt and white shorts, going for a simple, sporty, laid-back look. Ethan started walking towards the elevators. Coming. Jessica chirped with a light laugh, jogging to catch up. She slipped her slender, pale arm through his, holding onto him snugly. Instantly, he felt that familiar soft pressure against his side, trapping his arm. Ethan glanced sideways at her. Do we have to keep up the act in front of her BFF, too? He couldn't help asking. They were out of the manor now. He didn't see the point since no one else was around. Of course. Jessica gave him a sweet smile, looking as if the answer was obvious. My BFF visits me at home all the time. She knows Robert Lewis and the housekeeper really well. It would be a huge hassle if she found out. Fine. Ethan sighed, resigned, letting her keep her arm linked through his. Poor my arm, he thought wryly. Trapped again with nowhere to go. The despair. They took the elevator up to the first floor and headed towards Starbucks. Jessica had arranged to meet Laura there before they went shopping. As soon as Ethan and Jessica walked into Starbucks, a girl sitting at a corner table by the window spotted them, stood up, and waved them over. There's Laura, Jessica said, still holding Ethan's arm, and led him briskly over to the table, sitting down opposite the other girl. Jessica, so this is your husband? Laura looked Ethan up and down, her eyes full of curious scrutiny. She seemed eager to figure out what was so special about this man that had made her staunchly anti-marriage friend suddenly fall head over heels and rush into a whirlwind marriage. But after looking him over, Laura couldn't see much beyond the fact that he was reasonably good-looking. Still, it was their first meeting, and Laura didn't know him. She figured he must have some hidden depths or special quality that had captured her friend's heart. While Laura sized him up, Ethan observed Jessica's BFF in return. She was sweet-faced with a reasonably curvy figure, quite pretty overall. Though she couldn't hold a candle to Jessica, she definitely fit the cute, perhaps slightly superficial, Valley girl type. Hi, I'm Ethan, he said politely, his voice gentle. Hi, I'm Laura, Jessica's BFF, Laura replied with a sweet smile. So, Laura, isn't my husband handsome? Jessica asked, a hint of smug pride on her face, like she was showing off a prized possession. He's all right, Laura nodded, giving a polite, surface-level agreement. What she really thought was, he's just okay, but saying that to his face would be rude. Honestly, in terms of looks alone, Laura felt Ethan was nowhere near Jessica's league. He was kind of handsome, but only just. Jessica, on the other hand, was breathtakingly gorgeous, the kind of beauty that made even famous actresses seem plain by comparison. They were worlds apart. Still, seeing the look of pure happiness on her friend's face, Laura held her tongue. As long as Jessica was happy, that's what mattered. So Ethan, Laura leaned forward, suddenly resembling a curious kid, eager for details. What do you do for work? And how did you and Jessica meet? Me? Ethan gave a small smile. Well, I'm currently unemployed. Got laid off a while back and haven't found anything yet. As for how Jessica and I met." He paused briefly before continuing. "We met back in college. We were actually best friends for a long time." Ethan deliberately glossed over the complexities of their history. He didn't mention that Jessica had been his ex-wife's best friend. That detail would undoubtedly make their current relationship seem rather scandalous. Besides, his version wasn't entirely untrue. He had met Jessica in college. Back when he first started dating Sarah Young, Jessica was Sarah Young's good friend, and they'd naturally gotten acquainted through her. "Is that right, Jessica?" Laura asked, turning curiously to her friend. Jessica gazed at Ethan's profile, a faint, slightly wistful smile playing on her beautiful lips as she nodded gently. "Yes, that's right." Actually, she thought, it's not like that at all. She had known of Ethan since elementary school, but back then, he hadn't known she existed. They attended the same middle school and high school too, with her always watching him silently from the sidelines. He never knew her, never realized there was a girl secretly nursing a crush on him all those years. Not until college, after he started dating Sarah Young. It was only then, for his sake, that Jessica had deliberately befriended Sarah Young. And only then that Ethan finally, truly noticed her. "You've known each other that long?" Laura's eyes widened in surprise. She couldn't resist probing further. "Jessica, be honest. Did you secretly have a crush on him all this time? Why else would you suddenly get married?" Jessica turned her head, her bright eyes gazing softly at Ethan's profile. Her expression became incredibly tender. "Yes," she said quietly. "I've liked him for a long time. For many, many years." "No way, really?" Laura gasped, covering her mouth, her expression a mixture of shock and delight. Ethan shot Laura a resigned glance. She's so gullible, he thought. Their marriage was purely about the inheritance. Jessica's confession of long-held feelings was just part of their cover story, yet Laura bought it completely. A soft smile touched Jessica's lips as she nodded earnestly at Laura. "It's true. I've liked him for ages. Liked him so much." "Oh my God, you two are just too sweet," Laura exclaimed, looking at her friend's blissful expression. She seemed genuinely thrilled, practically bouncing in her seat. "Seriously, the air here is thick with romance. Enough to make a single girl jealous." "Laura, what are you guys talking about?" "Laura, what are you guys talking about?" Just then, a young man walked in, came straight over where the three were, and sat down beside Laura. "Daniel, what took you so long in the restroom?" Laura pouted, looking slightly annoyed at the man beside her. "Sorry, Laura, kept you waiting." Daniel scratched his head awkwardly, looking apologetic. "Umph." Laura huffed softly, her expression softening a little. Then, noticing the puzzled looks on Ethan and Jessica's faces across the table, Laura realized she had forgotten to introduce the man beside her. "Oh, right. Jessica, Ethan, this is my boyfriend, Daniel." "Jessica, you kept saying you hadn't met my boyfriend, right? Well, here he is." Jessica looked at Daniel and greeted him politely. "Hi. I'm Jessica, Laura's friend." "Hi." Daniel looked at Jessica, a flash of stunned admiration in his eyes. What a beautiful girl. He'd always thought his girlfriend was already gorgeous. But seeing Jessica now, he suddenly felt there was always someone more stunning out there. His girlfriend was pretty at best. Jessica, she was absolutely breathtaking. However, he quickly snapped back to reality and averted his gaze. Staring would be rude, after all. "Hi." He then turned to Ethan, greeting him politely, though a hint of envy couldn't help but surface in his eyes. Such a stunning girl, and Ethan managed to land her. Honestly, he was quite envious of Ethan. "Hey," Ethan offered a smile. "All right, now that everyone's here, let's go shopping." Laura stood up, looking eager and restless. "Let's go then." The four of them left Starbucks and started wandering through Green Valley Mall. What followed was a scene straight out of a shopping montage. Jessica and Laura charge ahead on a buying spree, while Ethan and Daniel trail behind them, laden with various shopping bags. Half an hour later, Ethan and Daniel were draped in shopping bags, utterly exhausted, heads drooping, listlessly following the two women. In contrast, the two women were still full of energy, seemingly tireless, as if they had endless stamina. Finally, glancing back casually, Jessica saw Ethan weighed down with bags in both hands and immediately felt a pang of sympathy. She turned and went to Ethan's side, saying softly, "Honey, here, let me take some." "It's okay, I'm not tired." Ethan tried to act tough, but Jessica didn't take no for an answer and simply took half the bag from his hands. Witnessing this, Daniel, also laden with bags, immediately shot Ethan an envious look. Not only is she gorgeous, but she's also so considerate. He turned his head, looking pleadingly at his own girlfriend, Laura. Laura stood there with her arms crossed, seemingly aware of what he was thinking, and said dismissively, "What are you looking at? I keep telling you to exercise more, but you don't listen. And now you're tired from carrying just a few things." Daniel, they're both girlfriends, so why is there such a huge difference? After scolding her boyfriend, Laura looked at Jessica, chuckled softly, and teased, "What's this, Jessica? Feeling sorry for your man, just because he's carrying a few bags." Jessica, holding the bags, lifted her delicate face and admitted readily, "Of course. He's my man. If I don't dote on him, who will?" Seeing Jessica so openly doting on Ethan, Daniel then looked at his own girlfriend, who seemed completely unbothered and ready to criticize from the sidelines. The contrast couldn't be more stark. When he looked back at Ethan, his eyes were practically bulging with envy. "Fine, so my girlfriend isn't as pretty as his, but she's not even considerate. Comparing people is just infuriating." Laura said nonchalantly, "Tisich, what's there to feel sorry about? Those bags aren't even heavy. My Daniel often comes shopping with me, and he always carries way more than that without getting tired." In Laura's view, it was perfectly natural for guys to carry all the shopping bags when accompanying girls shopping. Every time Daniel went shopping with her before, it had been like this, and she never saw any problem with it. But seeing Jessica seemingly enjoying pampering Ethan, Laura didn't know what else to say, just resignedly commented, "You go ahead and spoil him then. He's my man, and I'll spoil him however I want." Jessica lifted her chin, looking completely self-assured, her tone even slightly boastful. All right, he's your man. Spoil him all you want." Laura turned away, leaving just one sentence behind. "Come on, let's keep shopping. I'm not done yet." With that, she strode towards a branded women's clothing store. Daniel watched his girlfriend walk off haughtily, then looked at Ethan and Jessica walking side by side, sharing the load of bags. He suddenly felt an urge to cry. Still, he'd chosen his girlfriend, so he could only swallow his tears and endure it. Meanwhile, Ethan glanced at Jessica's beautiful profile beside him, hesitated for a moment, then said, "Maybe you should give the bags back to me. I'm worried Daniel's feeling a bit unbalanced." Just now, he had caught Daniel's blatantly envious stares several times. As a fellow man, he felt a little smug, but at the same time, he felt it was somewhat cruel to Daniel. "What's wrong with it? You're my man. Of course I should care about you." Jessica turned to him, looking as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You're overdoing it a bit." Ethan twitched his lips, reminding her softly with a hint of resignation. He had to admit, Jessica was a talented actress. Playing his wife, she was so convincing he almost believed it himself. This whole doting on her man act looked completely real. "How am I overdoing it? I like acting like this." Jessica puffed out her cheeks, seeming slightly displeased, and muttered under her breath, "Just play along nicely and cut the chatter." With that, she quickened her pace, her slender, graceful back now exuding a hint of coolness. Surprisingly, she looked almost like a valley girl. Ethan watched her retreating figure and shrugged helplessly. "Fine, you like acting? Then act." No sooner had the words left his mouth than Daniel, still draped in shopping bags, came up beside him, an expression of pure admiration on his face. "Bro, Ethan, can I ask you something?" Daniel said earnestly. Sure, go ahead." Feeling the respect in Daniel's tone, Ethan was slightly taken aback. Daniel's eyes shone as he asked with sincere curiosity, "Bro, Ethan, how did you train your girlfriend? Teach me your ways." Well." Ethan scratched his head, suddenly feeling awkward. Seeing his hesitation, Daniel thought Ethan was unwilling to share and immediately pleaded, "Bro, Ethan, if you have some tricks, please teach me. I'm begging you. You saw my Laura. She doesn't know the first thing about being considerate. Not like your wife, so gentle and caring." He was already putting it mildly. His girlfriend, Laura, wasn't just inconsiderate. She could also get physical without holding back. Most importantly, his girlfriend was an overseas Texas tornado, her classic catchphrase being "my Texas rules." Unlike Jessica, who was gentle, intelligent, sensible, and caring. What man wouldn't want a girlfriend like that? Sigh. Ethan patted his shoulder sympathetically, looking quite helpless. "Buddy, some things are just fate. You'll just have to accept it." With that, he walked ahead. He didn't have any secret methods for training women. It was all just Jessica enjoying her acting. Another half an hour later, the two women finally, though reluctantly, concluded their shopping spree. By this point, Daniel was utterly exhausted. He collapsed onto the ground, surrounded by shopping bags. Ethan, however, wasn't nearly as miserable. With Jessica helping carry some of the load, he didn't feel too tired. "All right, Daniel, Ethan, take all this stuff we bought down to the car. We sisters will grab some milkshakes here and wait for you, Laura said, linking arms with Jessica contentedly as she addressed the two men. Finally free, Daniel sighed in relief. He felt that accompanying his girlfriend shopping was more exhausting than a day at work. Thankfully, it was finally over. Jessica had initially offered to help Ethan carry the rest of the bags down to the underground parking garage, but he politely declined. Although Jessica had bought quite a bit, he could manage carrying it all down to the underground parking garage himself. There was no need for Jessica to make the trip with him. After the two men left, Laura pulled Jessica into a Starbucks. They ordered 2 milkshakes and found a corner table. Besides them, the shop was empty, feeling rather quiet. I was dying of thirst after all that walking. Laura cupped her milkshake and took several large gulps, a satisfied expression spreading across her face. Yeah, it's been a while since I've had such a fun shopping spree, Jessica murmured wistfully. Oh, right, Jessica. Tell me more about your husband. Laura suddenly piped up, her interest piqued. What do you want to know? Jessica asked, holding her cup, her delicate lips sipping the milkshake through the straw. Jessica, I was just wondering, if you've liked your Ethan since college, why have you been telling everyone all these years that you were committed to staying single? Laura asked, looking curious. Jessica thought for a moment before speaking softly. Laura, actually, I didn't start liking him in college. Not college? Then when? Laura blinked, then pressed further. Jessica smiled gently, a reminiscent look on her face. Actually, I've liked him since I was 10. 10? Laura's eyes widened in disbelief. She never would have guessed that her sister, whom she'd known for so many years and who had always claimed to be against marriage, had secretly been harboring feelings for a boy all along. This news was absolutely explosive to her. Who would have thought her anti-marriage sister had been in love the whole time? Then why did you say you were against marriage before? Laura asked, completely baffled. Jessica paused, then began to tell Laura the whole story between her and Ethan, including how she got close to Sarah in college because of Ethan, including the whole trial separation situation. She told her everything. She wasn't worried about Laura spilling the beans. They were the closest of sisters, knew each other inside out, and trusted each other completely. Earlier, in the underground parking garage, the reason she told Ethan they still needed to put on an act in front of Laura was purely because she wanted a legitimate excuse to be close and affectionate with Ethan. Besides, she had actually lied to Ethan. Laura had never actually been to her manor, didn't know Robert at all, and certainly didn't know the housekeeper. A long moment passed. By the time Jessica finished explaining everything, Laura was already gaping, her expression one of pure shock. So, this Ethan, he's actually Sarah's husband? She just lent him to you to marry. Laura still looked incredulous. At that moment, she didn't even know how to describe how she felt. All she could say was, mind blown. Borrowing a husband? Having something like that happen right beside her was just outrageous. Yes, Ethan is actually Sarah's ex-husband, Jessica confirmed with a nod. Damn, Jessica, I always wondered how you managed to become BFFs with someone like Sarah. Turns out it was all for her husband. Laura looked at her sister, a look of sudden realization dawning on her face. Before today, although she hadn't met Ethan, she had met Sarah a few times because Jessica and Sarah were BFFs. She used to wonder how Jessica could be BFFs with a woman like Sarah, such a gold digger, so vain and materialistic. Now, she finally understood. It was all for Sarah's husband, Ethan. That explained everything. MHM. Jessica nodded softly, admitting it somewhat sheepishly. After all, coveting your BFF's husband was indeed pretty outrageous. Laura looked at Jessica as if seeing her for the first time. After a long moment, she couldn't help but sigh emotionally. Jessica, you're really something else. Loving someone for 17 years. She found it hard to believe, in this era overflowing with fast food romance, that such pure love still existed. 17 years. She couldn't fathom how much someone had to love another person to love them for 17 years and stay single all that time for him, even going so far as to declare herself committed to never marrying. Only now did she finally understand. There was no commitment to being single. It was just that she couldn't be with the person she loved. That was the only reason she claimed to be against marriage. Don't look at me like that. It's embarrassing. Feeling Laura's strange gaze, Jessica's cheeks flushed slightly. Laura was looking at her like she was some kind of rare creature. What's there to be embarrassed about? Laura picked up her cup, took a sip of her milkshake, and then asked, so what's your plan now? Are you going to give Ethan back to Sarah after the 2 weeks are up? Jessica lifted her pretty face and shook her head gently. Ethan said he won't reconcile with Sarah, so I plan to pursue him during these 2 weeks. "Atta girl, sister." Laura clapped her on the shoulder approvingly. "If you like someone, go for it. You've loved him for 17 years. If you let him go now, even I'd look down on you." Laura thought of something and changed the subject slightly. "Besides, that's Sarah. I really don't think she deserves Ethan. You know, I once saw her at a speakeasy bar cuddling up with several guys, even making out with one in public. But she was your BFF back then, so I didn't feel right bad-mouthing her to your face. After that, though, I kept my distance." Mentioning Sarah, Laura's disgust was plainly written on her face. Jessica, however, didn't look surprised. "Actually, I've heard similar things. That's why I feel so bad for Ethan. He worked so hard to support the family, and Sarah treated him like that." Thinking about how Ethan had lived a life worse than a dog for the past 3 years made Jessica's heart ache. He was the boy she had longed for over the past 17 years. How could Sarah trample on Ethan's feelings like that? Ethan must have been so disappointed in that woman. Laura nodded in agreement. "Yeah, a great guy like Ethan. Sarah really lucked out finding him. It's a pity she didn't know how to cherish him." "Laura, do you think I can actually make Ethan like me?" Jessica lifted her glistening eyes, a hint of sadness clouding them. Seeing the stunningly beautiful Jessica looking so worried, Laura felt a little helpless, but managed to smile. "Of course you can. You're Jessica. You used to have enough guys chasing you to make up a few football teams. Look at this face. What reason would Ethan have not to like you?" Laura tried to comfort her. She truly couldn't fathom that Jessica, once put on a pedestal and treated like a goddess by everyone, would one day be frowning like this over a man. This was Jessica, the girl who used to be so confident, now acting so insecure. Honestly, it was the first time Laura had ever seen Jessica be so cautious and almost subservient towards a guy. Is this the power of the one that got away? She couldn't help but wonder. Still, seeing Jessica looking so defeated, Laura worried she might get scared and miss out on the feeling she'd held onto for 17 years. She continued encouragingly. "Jessica, you've liked him for 17 years. Now that you finally have this chance, you can't chicken out. Go for it. If someone like Sarah Young could be with Ethan, what makes you think you're any less?" Hearing this, a spark returned to Jessica's eyes, and her gaze grew determined. She nodded firmly. "And ma'am, you're right. I can't let this chance slip by. Even if I fail, I have to try. This time, I don't want to miss him again." "Exactly. That's the spirit. You're Jessica, rich and beautiful. You could have any man falling for you with just a snap of your fingers. A mere Ethan? You could definitely win him over." "Thanks, Laura. Talking with you today has really put my mind at ease." Jessica offered a soft smile. "Think nothing of it. If it were me, I'd go after the man I liked no matter what." Laura waved dismissively, then added teasingly, "Jessica, when you and Ethan finally get married, just remember to give me a nice big cash gift envelope." Jessica laughed at that, unable to stop herself from imagining the day she actually married Ethan. If that day ever came, she'd do anything. "Okay, when Ethan and I get married, I'll definitely give you a huge cash gift envelope." Jessica nodded emphatically, her pretty face blooming into a smile. "What are you talking about? That's so funny." Just then, Ethan Thompson and Daniel Carter walked into the Starbucks together. Seeing the two women laughing so happily, Ethan Thompson asked curiously, "And nothing?" Jessica glanced at Ethan Thompson, her cheeks flushing slightly. She quickly averted her gaze, looking flustered. Seeing her BFF's shy demeanor, Laura found it amusing. She'd known Jessica for so many years, but this was the first time she'd ever seen her act shy. It was refreshing, to say the least. Soon, Ethan Thompson and Daniel Carter sat down. Ethan Thompson was holding a snack and eating it with gusto. "Are those fried pickles?" Seeing how much Ethan Thompson was enjoying them, Jessica Smith couldn't help leaning in for a closer look. Ethan Thompson, munching on a pickle, grinned. "Yeah, I got a little hungry downstairs and saw someone selling them, so I bought some. I was going to get some for everyone, but Daniel Carter said you guys don't eat fried pickles, so I only bought one serving." Laura nodded slightly. "Daniel's right. We don't really eat fried pickles." She personally just didn't like the taste. Jessica didn't eat them because, as a socialite, she rarely indulged in street food like that. Fried pickles were just one example. However, no sooner had the words left Laura's mouth than Jessica Smith turned her gaze pleadingly towards Ethan Thompson opposite her, asking in a wheedling tone, "Ethan, can I try a little?" Laura then watched as Ethan Thompson picked up a piece of fried pickle and fed it to Jessica Smith. Jessica Smith opened her mouth, took a bite, and began eating happily. Her beautiful face instantly beamed with bliss. Seeing this, Laura froze for a second. watching Jessica Smith look so happy and content over a piece of fried pickle. She couldn't believe it. The Jessica Smith who used to turn her nose up at street food was now savoring it. Was this still Jessica Smith? She was acting completely different in front of Ethan Thompson. Thinking this, she couldn't help but glance at Ethan Thompson. Now she understood. It wasn't that Jessica Smith disliked fried pickles. She just disliked fried pickles that weren't fed to her by Ethan Thompson. Laura felt a touch resigned, shaking her head with a small smile. The Jessica Smith before her was exactly like a young girl in love, whereas the high and mighty attitude of someone committed to single-dom she used to have. Is it good? Meanwhile, Ethan Thompson was also a bit stunned watching Jessica Smith eat with such relish. Daniel Carter had clearly told him that neither Jessica Smith nor Laura Miller ate fried pickles. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bought just one serving. Delicious. I want more. Jessica Smith nodded, her eyes bright, looking utterly delighted. Okay. Ethan Thompson obliged, feeding her another piece while shooting Daniel Carter a questioning look. Daniel Carter scratched his head, equally baffled. He distinctly remembered his girlfriend Laura Miller telling him that neither she nor Jessica Smith ate fried pickles. Especially Jessica Smith, who always kept her distance from street food like this. But why was Jessica Smith eating them so happily now? He looked towards his girlfriend, seeking an answer. Laura glared at him. What are you looking at? Look at Ethan Thompson. He knows to buy food for his girl. What about you? You didn't buy me anything? Daniel Carter looked instantly awkward, asking sheepishly, Laura, didn't you say you don't eat fried pickles? So you couldn't have bought something else? Laura shot back, seeing he dared to argue, her demeanor instantly intimidating. This. Daniel Carter was speechless, quickly conceding defeat. Laura, I'm sorry, I'll go buy you something right now. Go now. Now. Daniel Carter looked troubled. Laura, I just sat down, I haven't even. According to my Texas rules. 1. Laura had barely lifted one finger when Daniel Carter scrambled up and bolted out of the Starbucks. Ethan Thompson watched Daniel Carter's hasty retreat, then looked at Laura Miller, who was casually sipping her milkshake across from him. TSK, the Texas tornado, certainly lives up to her reputation. Time quickly passed until 1 in the afternoon. They had originally planned to go for a steak dinner together, but Laura Miller received a call and suddenly announced she had something urgent to attend to and had to head back first. And so, after saying their goodbyes, everyone went their separate ways. After returning to the manor, Jessica Smith went upstairs to take a shower. She'd been out all morning and had worked up a sweat, feeling quite uncomfortable. Ethan Thompson sat downstairs, eating watermelon and enjoying the air conditioning, feeling completely relaxed. Beep beep. Just as he was biting into the watermelon, the iPhone he'd left on the table suddenly rang. Ethan Thompson picked up the iPhone and saw it was a call from his father. Hello, Dad. Ethan Thompson answered the call. Son, you haven't been too busy lately, have you? A middle-aged man's voice came from the other end. Dad, I'm not busy. What's up? Ethan Thompson put down the watermelon, curious. William Thompson said slowly, Well, son, your mother was just on WhatsApp with your mother-in-law. We heard your father-in-law needs surgery soon. If you and your wife aren't busy, you should go visit him together. Hearing this, Ethan Thompson fell silent. After a long pause, he finally said slowly, Dad, Sarah Young and I are divorced. What? Divorced? William Thompson was stunned. What? Our son got divorced. Give me the phone. A middle-aged woman's voice suddenly interrupted, and then William Thompson's iPhone was snatched away. Son, you and Sarah Young got divorced? Ethan Thompson's mother, Margaret Thompson, asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Yes, Mom. We're divorced. But why, son? Mom, there's no specific reason. We just weren't right for each other. We couldn't make it work anymore. On the other end, Margaret Thompson was silent for a long moment. Finally, she sighed as if resigning herself to it. All right, son. If you're divorced, you're divorced. As long as you're happy, that's what matters. Ethan Thompson tried to reassure her. Mom, I'm doing fine now. You don't need to worry. Okay. Margaret Thompson's voice held a trace of resignation. She then asked, Then, about your father-in-law. Mom, Sarah Young and I are divorced. If her father needs surgery, it's really not appropriate for me to get involved anymore. Now that he was divorced from Sarah Young, there was no need to go chasing after people who clearly saw him as a fallback option. All right then. Okay, Mom. You and Dad take care of yourselves. I'll come visit you soon. All right, I know. The call ended quickly. Ethan Thompson let out a soft sigh of relief. For the past few days, he hadn't figured out how to tell his family about the divorce. At least now, it was out in the open. However, he didn't tell his parents that he had already remarried. In his view, his marriage to Jessica Smith was just a transaction. They would divorce in 2 weeks anyway. There was no point telling his parents. Explaining it would just be a hassle. As for Sarah Young's father being sick and needing surgery, that was no longer his concern. Sarah Young's parents had never been satisfied with him as a son-in-law and didn't particularly like him. This time, at least, he wouldn't have to go groveling. He remembered back when he and Sarah Young had first gotten serious. To try and scare Ethan Thompson off, Sarah Young's parents had demanded a bride price of over $30,000. Back then, Ethan Thompson, driven by what he thought was love, had forced his parents to borrow frantically from relatives and friends to scrape together the $30,000 plus. Only then could he marry Sarah Young. Over the past few years, although Ethan Thompson had been repaying the debt, most of it was actually paid off by his parents. And Sarah Young, the woman he'd nearly killed himself to marry, hadn't shown his parents the respect and care expected of a daughter-in-law in the 3 years they were married. In those 3 years, she hadn't visited his parents at their home even once. Every Christmas, it was always Sarah Young's decision to go to her parents' home instead. Fortunately, Ethan Thompson had a younger sister who would go home during holidays to keep their parents company, so they weren't completely lonely. Thinking about all this, Ethan Thompson felt a surge of guilt. As a son, he felt he had failed his parents. But now that he was divorced, he had no connection to Sarah Young's family anymore. Meanwhile, at Sunnybrook Estates, in the living room, Sarah Young was sitting on the sofa, leisurely eating breakfast. She had been at her sister Olivia Wilson's birthday party last night, stayed out all night, and only came back to sleep at dawn. She had only just woken up. The housekeeper happened to be cleaning the house, so Sarah Young had her make some breakfast. Otherwise, she would have had to order takeout. "Miss, I've finished the cleaning. I'll head out now and come back this afternoon to make you that steak dinner." Ms. Dawson came out of the kitchen carrying a trash bag. "All right, Ms. Dawson, you can go." Sarah Young glanced up at her and nodded slightly. Then, the housekeeper left with a trash bag. Sarah Young continued eating her breakfast. Just then, the iPhone she had casually tossed onto the sofa started ringing. Sarah Young picked up the iPhone and saw it was her mother calling. "Hello, Mom? What's up?" Sarah Young answered. "Sarah, your father. They found stomach cancer during his checkup at Green Valley Memorial Hospital. He's already been admitted." Linda Wilson's voice was choked with tears and urgency. "Stomach cancer?" Sarah Young's eyes widened, and the chopsticks she was holding clattered to the floor. "Yes, the doctor confirmed it's stomach cancer." "Mom, how serious is it?" Sarah Young was starting to panic. Linda Wilson sighed. "The doctor said thankfully they caught it early. It's in the early stages, so surgery should be enough." Hearing this, Sarah Young let out a long sigh of relief. "Really? Oh, that's good." "Yes. The doctor said the surgery will cost around $100,000 plus, and they recommended having it done at a major hospital. Your father and I discussed it, and we plan to come to Green Valley for the surgery. It works out since you and Ethan Thompson are in Green Valley. You can help look after things." Linda Wilson paused, then continued, Sarah Young, about the money for the surgery. "Could you ask Ethan Thompson if he'd be willing to cover it? We really don't have the funds." "Mom, don't worry. Money isn't an issue. When are you coming?" "Your father and I will be there the day after tomorrow." "Okay, great. Mom, just WhatsApp me when you arrive, and I'll come pick you up." After hanging up, Sarah Young finally felt a sense of relief. However, looking at the breakfast on the table, she had lost her appetite. "The surgery costs over $100,000. I only have about $60,000 on me right now. But money isn't the problem. I just need to get an advance from Jessica Smith on the remaining $25 million. She originally had over $100,000, but yesterday while shopping, she couldn't resist buying another handbag and 2 nice outfits, spending over $40,000. That left her with just over $60,000. But she wasn't worried at all, because Jessica Smith still owed her $25 million in payment. She could ask Jessica Smith for an advance. Even if she couldn't get the full $25 million right away, getting tens of thousands up front shouldn't be a problem. The only thing causing her a headache was Ethan Thompson. She wondered if that guy had cooled down yet. Now, her parents were coming to Green Valley for the surgery. As her husband, how could Ethan Thompson not show up? I should give him a call. Heart pounding, Sarah nervously dialed Ethan's number. A few seconds later, she realized her number was still blocked. "Ethan, you're really going to keep this up, aren't you?" Sarah's eyebrows shot up, anger flaring instantly. It had been days, and Ethan still had her blocked. She took several deep breaths, trying to calm herself down. After a moment's thought, she resorted to calling Jessica. Ring, ring. After a while, the call finally connected. "Jessica, is Ethan there?" "Put him on, I need to talk to him," Sarah said, getting straight to the point. "Oh, all right, hold on." Jessica, who sounded like she had just gotten out of the shower on the other end, seemed reluctant but went downstairs and handed the phone to Ethan. "What is it?" Ethan's cold voice soon came through the phone, laced with undisguised impatience. "Ethan, have you had enough? How long are you going to stay mad?" Hearing Ethan's indifferent tone, Sarah felt a fresh wave of anger. Before, whenever she called Ethan, he'd pick up instantly, 24/7. But now, he'd had her blocked for days, unreachable. And now that she finally got him on the phone through someone else, he was being so impatient with her. How could she not be furious? "Sarah, if you have something to say it. If not, I'm hanging up," Ethan said coolly, his voice devoid of any emotion. "Wait." Although furious, Sarah decided to swallow her anger for now. Business first. As for Ethan, she'd deal with him after they remarried. "Ethan, my father has stomach cancer. He needs to come to the hospital here in Green Valley for surgery and medical care. Tell Jessica you need to come back and stay for a while. Take care of my father until he's discharged. Then you can go back." Sarah stated it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, her tone demanding and entitled. "Sarah, I believe I told you, we are divorced. What does my father being sick have to do with me? You expect me to take care of him? What are you thinking?" Ethan retorted mercilessly. "Ethan, you've got some nerve. How dare you speak about my father like that?" Sarah gritted her teeth, her whole body trembling with rage. She forced herself to keep taking deep breaths to quell the storm inside her. "You said it yourself. He's my father. What does he have to do with me? If he needs care, you take care of him. Don't even think about asking me." "Ethan, I tried to be nice, didn't I? You wouldn't listen when I spoke reasonably, so now you're forcing me to curse you out. Is that it?" Sarah was about to explode. Unable to hold back any longer, she let loose. "Sarah, are you out of your mind? I've told you 800 times we're divorced." "Divorced? Do you not understand plain English? Are your ears just for decoration?" Ethan shot back, equally harsh. Fine. Ethan, so you're dead set on not remarrying, is that it?" "That's right. No remarriage. Whoever remarries is a damn fool." Hearing Ethan's absolute certainty, Sarah finally, truly realized that Ethan had no intention of remarrying her. Still, she didn't panic. "Ethan, I'm pregnant. You don't want to remarry, fine. Does that mean you don't want a child either?" Sarah played her trump card. She refused to believe Ethan could still be so stubborn about not remarrying after finding out she was carrying his child. After all, Ethan had always wanted a child, and Ethan's parents had always hoped she would carry on the Thompson family line. With this baby, wouldn't Ethan have to soften up, come running back, apologize, and beg her to remarry him? Oomph. Go ahead and act tough. You'll have to back down now. Thinking this, Sarah touched her belly, finally feeling a bit better, a smug look of assured victory on her face. Hearing her words, Ethan fell silent on the other end. After a long pause, Ethan finally spoke slowly, his voice still cold. "Pregnant, huh? Fine. When the child is born, I'll have a paternity test done. If the child is mine, I'll raise it. As for remarriage, Sarah, forget about it for the rest of your life." Ethan's tone was as firm as ever, his stance unyielding. He now saw Sarah for who she truly was. There was no way he would repeat his past mistakes, trying to tie him down with a child. Dream on. "Ethan, you jerk." Sarah's eyes widened as she burst out cursing. "What do you take me for? You want to take the baby for a paternity test? You actually suspect me of cheating." Sarah was utterly incensed. At the same time, a flicker of panic sparked within her. After all, she couldn't guarantee the child was Ethan's. What if it wasn't? Wouldn't a paternity test expose everything? "Sarah, I've made myself clear. If the child is mine, I'll support it, but I will never remarry you. If the child isn't mine, then I'm sorry, but please don't ever bother me again." "Ethan, do you believe I'll go get an abortion right now?" Sarah's face twisted with rage, her voice becoming shrill. "Then go ahead and get rid of it. I'm not even sure the child is mine anyway," Ethan said nonchalantly. "Ethan, you jerk." Sarah completely lost it. Her face turned ashen with fury, and she violently slammed her phone onto the floor. The poor phone shattered instantly. Still fuming, Sarah got up and flipped the coffee table, sending the breakfast on it scattering across the floor. Even that wasn't enough. She grabbed a sofa cushion and hurled it violently against the wall. Then, a wave of grievance washed over her. She collapsed onto the sofa, buried her head in her hands, and started sobbing uncontrollably. "Why, Ethan, you jerk? How could you make me this angry wah?" Tears streamed down Sarah's face as her body shook with sobs. The old Ethan had treated her like a princess, never daring to even raise his voice at her. How could he infuriate her like this now? Having always been spoiled, she felt unbearably wronged. "Whoa, Sarah, what happened to you?" Just then, the door suddenly opened, and Olivia walked in. Seeing the utter mess on the floor and Sarah crying her eyes out, she was momentarily stunned. Olivia, so be out here. I'm so miserable, sobbed Ethan. He's changed why? Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face, gazing at her sister. She cried as if her heart was breaking. What's wrong, Sarah? Olivia quickly walked over and sat beside her. Sarah immediately threw herself into her arms, crying inconsolably. Olivia could only pat her back repeatedly, trying to soothe her. Why, Ethan, that jerk. I'm pregnant, and he still treats me like this, why? Sarah sobbed, muttering resentful curses against Ethan between choked breaths. Okay, don't cry, Sarah. Seeing how emotional she was, Olivia sighed helplessly and patiently tried to calm her down. After a long while, Sarah's crying gradually subsided. Sarah, tell me what happened, Olivia asked curiously, seeing that Sarah had finally calmed down a bit. Olivia, Ethan's such a jerk. Sarah sobbed, wiping her tears. Olivia, he really doesn't want to get back together with me, sob. Did you tell him about the baby? He'll definitely take you back if there's a baby involved, Olivia said. Sarah cried pitifully. I did, but he said even if I'm pregnant, he won't get back together with me. And after the baby's born, he wants to get a paternity test. Sob, he doesn't even trust me. At this point, Sarah was completely panicking. She had thought Ethan blocking her was just him being angry, that he'd come crawling back to apologize after a while. And then they'd obediently get back together. After all, Ethan loved her so much before. How could he not want to reconcile? But now, Ethan's unyielding attitude finally made her give up hope. It turned out Ethan wasn't just angry. He really had no intention of getting back together. The thought sent her into a panic. She only wanted a trial separation. She didn't want it to become real. What panicked her even more was that Ethan actually wanted a paternity test. If the test showed the child wasn't Ethan's, he would definitely abandon them. Then they'd be a single mother and child. How could she raise the baby alone? The more Sarah thought about it, the more panicked she became. Sigh. It looks like he's dead set against getting back together. Olivia sighed deeply. She hadn't expected Ethan to be so resolute, refusing to reconcile even with Sarah pregnant. It seemed Ethan was truly and utterly disappointed in Sarah. Olivia, what should I do? Sarah looked at her sister teary-eyed, feeling completely helpless. Sarah, I know you're anxious, but try not to panic just yet. Olivia frowned, thought for a moment, then said, Sarah, how about this? Let's find a chance to talk to Ethan properly tomorrow, face to face. After all, you're pregnant. I refuse to believe he can be that cold-hearted. Okay, yeah, I'll listen to you. Hearing this, Sarah touched her belly. The thought of being pregnant gave her a little more confidence. Oh, right, Olivia, my father's coming to Green Valley for medical treatment, and they don't know Ethan and I are divorced yet. If Ethan doesn't show up this time, I don't know how I'll explain it to my parents. Thinking about this, Sarah couldn't help but feel flustered again. If Ethan didn't show up, their trial separation would be exposed. It'll be okay, Sarah. Let's talk to him properly when we see him tomorrow. You're carrying his child, and your dad is his father-in-law. He won't just ignore it. Olivia patted her hand reassuringly, comforting her gently. Sarah nodded deeply, gradually feeling more at ease. Okay, Olivia, give me your phone. I need to call Jessica and arrange to meet Ethan tomorrow. Where's your phone? Olivia asked, a little confused, but took her phone out of her bag and handed it over. I dropped mine earlier. I'll go out and buy a new one this afternoon. Didn't iPhone just release a new model? I'll go get one later. Okay. At the manor, a phone rang again. Ethan and Jessica, sitting on the sofa, both looked towards the phone. Jessica picked it up, saw it was an unknown number, and answered. Hello, Jessica. Tell Ethan I need to see him tomorrow to talk things through properly. Sarah got straight to the point. Oh, okay, I'll ask him. Jessica lowered the phone and looked at Ethan. Before she could even speak, he nodded. All right, tell her to send the location. Ethan didn't refuse. He did feel it was necessary to talk to Sarah properly, face to face. After all, she was pregnant. If the child was his, Ethan would naturally take responsibility for the child. Of course, only for the child. The adult had nothing to do with him anymore. Soon, the call ended. Jessica looked at Ethan's expressionless profile, hesitated, but couldn't resist asking. Ethan, is Sarah really pregnant? Ethan nodded. Seems like it. Then, Jessica hesitated again, looking apprehensive. What are you thinking? She was really afraid Ethan would change his mind because of the pregnancy and get back together with Sarah. If that happened, she wouldn't have a chance. She wasn't afraid of Ethan having a child. Worst case, she could raise the child with Ethan. If Ethan didn't want to raise the child and only wanted to provide child support, she could handle that too. It wasn't that much money anyway. She was just afraid Ethan would get back together with Sarah. Then she'd completely lose her chance. Ethan shook his head slightly, his stance unchanged. So she's pregnant. It's not even certain if it's mine. If it is, I'll raise the child, but we are not getting back together. Ethan remained calm. To him, it was just a matter of raising a child at most. As for getting back together, that was impossible. I see. Jessica breathed a quiet sigh of relief. As long as Ethan didn't get back together with Sarah, everything else was manageable. She still had a chance. All right. Jessica remembered something and couldn't help asking, why did you think of getting a paternity test? Do you suspect she cheated too? Hearing this, Ethan shook his head slightly and gave a bitter, self-mocking laugh. I don't know if she cheated or not, but I saw her flirting with other guys on social media before. She deleted them right in front of me, so I let it go. Ethan thought back to how pathetic he'd been then and felt like slapping himself hard. Back then, Sarah was flirting with others on social media, and he caught her. Sarah said it was nothing, and like an idiot, he actually believed her. He didn't even believe colleagues who told him they saw his wife getting cozy with other men in nightclubs. He kept insisting Sarah would never do anything to betray him. Looking back now, he felt like he was just a fallback option. A huge jerk, but he understood clearly now. It wasn't that he was stupid back then. He just didn't want to believe it. Or rather, since he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he kept holding onto a sliver of hope. But now they were divorced. He no longer blindly trusted Sarah. Naturally, he wanted a paternity test. Jessica hesitated, looking like she wanted to say something but was holding back, finally speaking up. Actually, I've also heard rumors that she's involved with a lot of men. So, I also think getting a paternity test is a good idea. Although Jessica felt bad talking about someone behind their back. Since Ethan already suspected it, she didn't see the need to hide it anymore. Besides, she really didn't want to see the guy she liked being kept in the dark by that woman Sarah anymore. She wanted Ethan to see Sarah's true colors and stop being taken advantage of by her. She didn't want Ethan to keep being deceived by Sarah. Yeah, I know. Thanks. Ethan nodded, speaking gently. It's nothing really. No need to thank me. Jessica smiled lightly, brushing it off. Ethan looked at the understanding Jessica, thinking to himself, they're both BFFs, so why is there such a huge difference? If only Sarah were as mature, sensible, and reasonable as Jessica. At this thought, something seemed to dawn on Ethan, and he couldn't help but ask, by the way, Jessica, can I ask you something? What is it? Jessica paused, her bright eyes looking over curiously. Ethan looked slightly puzzled. I was wondering, since you've always known what Sarah's like, how did you put up with her and stay BFFs all this time? He suddenly realized something. Jessica and Sarah were completely different types of people. Yet, somehow, these two with such contrasting personalities had managed to become BFFs. It was rather baffling. Why the sudden question? Jessica was taken aback, a flicker of panic crossing her eyes. It just struck me as odd. You and Sarah are total opposites. How did you end up hanging out and becoming such close BFFs, able to talk about anything? Ethan looked at her, unable to quite grasp it. Of course, it was for you, Jessica thought. But outwardly, she didn't know how to answer, stammering as she tried to change the subject. So, in your eyes, what kind of person am I? She lifted her shimmering eyes to the boy she liked. In that moment, she felt inexplicably nervous, yet also filled with anticipation. She desperately wanted to know what kind of girl Ethan thought she was. Ethan thought for a moment, then smiled and replied, in my eyes, you're different from Sarah. You're gentle, considerate, thoughtful, mature, independent, sensible, tolerant, understanding, kind-hearted, responsible. You have good values. You're emotionally stable. You have self-respect. As Ethan spoke, he noticed a faint blush creeping onto Jessica's delicate, pretty face. Then, her gaze flickered away as she lowered her head. You, stop talking nonsense. I'm not that good. Jessica pressed her lips together tightly, but the corners of her mouth uncontrollably turned up into a smile she couldn't suppress. Her shimmering eyes sparkled brightly. Am I really that good in Ethan's eyes? Does he truly think of me that way? Jessica's heart swelled with delight. She couldn't have been happier. I'm serious. You're completely different from Sarah, so I'm really curious. How did you manage to become BFFs? Ethan just found it strange. As Sarah's ex-husband, even he couldn't stand her. How did Jessica tolerate her? But Jessica kept her head down, not daring to look at Ethan or let him see her bashful expression. Just as she was struggling for an explanation, a housekeeper walked over at an inopportune moment, carrying a tray with 2 glasses of juice and some pastries. Miss, Sir, Robert Lewis asked me to bring you these refreshments. The interruption broke the atmosphere. Ethan's attention was immediately diverted. Perhaps feeling thirsty, he picked up a glass and started drinking the juice. Jessica secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She looked up, touching her cheek. It was burning hot, undoubtedly bright red. I need to use the restroom," Jessica mumbled, quickly getting up and hurrying upstairs, not daring to stay any longer. Ethan watched her leave, finding it a bit strange, but didn't say anything. Upstairs, Jessica entered a room, closed the door, and leaned back against it. Instantly, she couldn't stop herself from covering her face and giggling with delight. Does Ethan really think I'm that good? Does he really see me as so much better than Sarah? I'm so happy. After Jessica went upstairs, Ethan sat alone on the ground floor, sipping his juice and starting to plan his future. Having just gotten divorced a few days ago, Ethan had been in a state of letting things slide, indifferent to everything. It wasn't until Sarah mentioned the baby today that he began to realize his future might not be solitary. Maybe there might even be a child. He didn't mind slacking off if it was just him, but having a child changed everything. That's why he felt the need to start planning. First and foremost was helping Jessica secure her inheritance and complete his task. Then, after 2 weeks, he would make a graceful exit and trial separation with Jessica. As for remarrying Sarah, that was impossible. At most, if the baby was born and a paternity test confirmed it was his, he would just raise the child himself. He'd rather raise the child alone, be a single father, than ever get back together with Sarah. Also, he was currently unemployed. After parting ways with Jessica in 2 weeks, he needed to find a job. If Sarah's baby really turned out to be his, having a job would provide some security. As for finding another girlfriend and remarrying, Ethan decided to let nature take its course. Firstly, he was a divorced man, potentially with a child on the way. Plus, he wasn't young anymore, approaching 30. With these conditions, finding a girlfriend would be difficult. Even if he went on blind dates, it was unlikely many women would be interested. So, regarding finding a girlfriend and remarrying, his attitude was, great if it happens, but if not, it didn't matter. He could manage on his own. Having thought things through, a smile spread across Ethan's face. He felt hopeful about the future, mainly because he knew Sarah wouldn't be in it. But during these next 2 weeks married to Jessica, it seems like I don't have much to do. It might get a bit boring. When he was with Sarah, he was busy as hell every day. Now, with Jessica, he had an excess of free time. This made Ethan feel like his current life was somewhat dull, with too much idle time, tedious, and uninteresting. Looks like I need to find something to keep myself busy. Ethan pondered, deciding he needed to find something to do. At 6 p.m., as the sun began to set, Jessica finally came downstairs in the spacious, luxurious manor. Ethan was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through Instagram reels. Jessica walked over and sat down beside him. Jessica glanced stealthily at Ethan, then sat up straight, cleared her throat, and said seriously, "By the way, about becoming BFFs with Sarah. When we first became friends, she wasn't like she is now. She changed later on. Nowadays, I don't really hang out with her much anymore." Ethan turned to look at her delicate profile, a question mark practically appearing over his head. Why bring this up all of a sudden? Ethan was baffled. Out of the blue, Jessica was bringing up Sarah again. It felt random. Jessica tilted her head, looking at him earnestly. "Didn't you ask me earlier why I became BFFs with Sarah? I'm answering you now." This was the reason she had spent so long racking her brain upstairs to come up with. I was just asking casually." Ethan's mouth twitched slightly. He had been curious at the time, so he asked offhandedly and hadn't thought about it since. He never expected Jessica, after all this time, to suddenly bring it up again. If she hadn't mentioned it, he would have completely forgotten. Jessica. And here she'd spent so long upstairs seriously thinking up a perfectly reasonable explanation. Turns out Ethan didn't even care. At that moment, she felt like facepalming. "Oh, really? I was just talking casually too." Jessica casually picked up the glass from the table and took a sip of juice to hide her awkwardness. That's the one I was drinking from." Ethan raised an eyebrow, feeling compelled to point it out. Oh, I didn't notice. Sorry about that." Jessica paused, gave an embarrassed little laugh, took another large gulp, and then put the glass back down. Ethan. Just then, a housekeeper approached them and said respectfully, "Miss, sir, the steak dinner is ready." Jessica immediately sat up straight and seized the opportunity to link her arm through Ethan's, making them look like an intimate couple, instantly resuming their husband and wife act. "All right, thank you." Jessica smiled and gave the housekeeper a slight nod, dismissing her. Ethan shot her a resigned look, thinking to himself, she really is quite the actress. It was 10 p.m. the night still. Inside the 1000 SQ FT room, Jessica, clad in pajamas, lay on the soft, large bed, engrossed in a WhatsApp chat with Laura. Meanwhile, Ethan was taking a shower in the bathroom. Ding! A notification sound chimed. Jessica picked up her phone. It was a WhatsApp message from Laura. Laura, Jessica, did you just say Sarah is pregnant? Just moments before, Jessica had told Laura about Sarah's pregnancy. Laura was stunned and had immediately fired back a message. Jessica, yeah, she said she's pregnant. Jessica typed out her reply. Soon, another message arrived from Laura. Laura, so what are you thinking? Still gonna chase Ethan? She was curious if Jessica would stick to her plan and keep pursuing Ethan, knowing he might potentially have a child on the way. Jessica, duh. Why wouldn't I? So what if there's a kid? If it comes down to it, I'll just raise the baby with Ethan. Laura, okay, that's you. Laura wasn't surprised by her answer. After all, Ethan was the guy Jessica had been crushing on for 17 years. Her ultimate dream guy. A little baby wasn't about to stop Jessica's feelings for him. Jessica, oh, by the way, Laura, Ethan actually complimented me today. He said I was better than Sarah, more mature, gentle, and understanding. Just thinking about the moment Ethan praised her made her blush, her heart flutter with pleasure. Naturally, she couldn't wait to share such happy news with her BFF. Laura, he really said all that? Wow, that means you've made a great impression on him. Sis, looks like your chances of getting Ethan are actually pretty high. Laura seemed genuinely surprised that Ethan had praised Jessica. Jessica, really? Laura, of course it's true. You got this, sis. Go get your man. I want to be drinking champagne at your wedding soon. Jessica, hee, from your lips to God's ears. Laura, but hey, sis, you better step on it. Sarah's definitely going to try and win Ethan back, especially since she's pregnant now. I'm worried Ethan won't be able to hold out if she keeps wearing him down. He might just cave. Reading this, Jessica frowned, a sudden sense of urgency washing over her. She's right. Sarah wouldn't just give up. She'd definitely keep pestering Ethan, trying to reconcile. Even though Ethan seemed resolute now, he might not be able to withstand her constant efforts. Plus, Sarah was pregnant, and Ethan used to love her so much. The more Jessica thought about it, the more panicked she felt. Looks like I need to make my move quickly. She had to make Ethan fall for her soon. Only when he was truly hers could she finally relax. Jessica, got it, Laura. I'll step up my game and try to win Ethan over ASAP. Laura, I'm rooting for you, sis. Go get Ethan and make Sarah regret ever letting him go. You cherished a man she didn't. Jessica, thanks, Laura. I will. Laura, sis, I really can't wait to see you two together. Reading this, Jessica felt a wave of warmth. If only it were possible, she desperately wanted to be with Ethan soon too. Because Ethan was the boy she had dreamed of marrying ever since she was a child. Jessica, Laura, thank you for looking out for me like this. Laura, haha, no, it's just, I won't be able to relax until I see you two officially together. Otherwise, you know that saying, guard against fire, guard against thieves, guard against your BFF? Sarah clearly didn't take precautions against you, so I guess I need to watch my back. Winking face. Jessica. Any warm feelings she'd had vanished instantly. Jessica, relax. I only have eyes for Ethan. Your Daniel really isn't my type, so you don't need to worry about me. She thought for a moment, then typed and sent another message. Jessica, seriously, Ethan's the only one in the world I want. Laura, whoa there. I was just joking. Why so serious? Laura was a bit speechless. She'd just been teasing, referencing a meme, and Jessica immediately jumped to declare her undying love for Ethan, how it had to be him and no one else. It felt like she was being force-fed their romance, even though nothing was actually happening yet. Just then, the sound of running water from the bathroom stopped. Jessica glanced towards the bathroom, realizing Ethan must be done showering. Jessica, okay, gotta go, Ethan's about to come out. Laura, what are you scared of? It's not like he can see your chat history. Jessica, that's not it. Once Ethan's out, I won't want to chat anymore. My eyes will be busy looking at him. No time for my phone. Laura, and there it was again, that feeling of having unwanted romance shoved in her face. So annoying. Just then, the bathroom door opened, and Ethan emerged, dressed in pajamas. Jessica watched Ethan, fresh from a shower, looking clean and smelling good, radiating an aura that made her instinctively want to get closer. Especially his handsome face, it looked perfect from every angle. Oomph. Seriously, Ethan is the only one I want. Jessica couldn't help but think, remembering Laura's teasing words. Still awake, Ethan glanced at Jessica, sitting up in bed, and asked casually. Not yet. It's still early. I'm not tired, Jessica replied, gazing at him with a bright smile. seemingly unable to look away. Ethan nodded without further comment and walked over to his makeshift bed on the floor, sitting down. All right, I might get up early for a run tomorrow morning. Ethan turned his head to tell Jessica. Don't worry, I'll try my best not to disturb you. Ethan had figured it out. During these 2 weeks of their fake marriage, he didn't really have much to do. He couldn't just keep doing nothing, letting himself go. So, he decided to find something productive to do. Since he wasn't going to just slack off, he thought about it and finally resolved to start working out again. He used to work out regularly back in college. He even had rock-hard 8-pack abs then. But ever since graduating and getting married, between the demands of work and having to cater to Sarah's needs at home, he simply hadn't had time for fitness. It had gotten to the point where his 8-pack had melted into a single, softer unit. However, since he was sharing a room with Jessica now, getting up early would inevitably risk waking her, which is why he wanted to give her a heads up. A morning run? Jessica blinked, looking surprised. She didn't get why Ethan would suddenly decide to start running in the mornings out of the blue. Yeah, probably around 8 a.m. Ethan confirmed with a nod. Don't worry, I'll try my best not to wake you when I get up. But why start running all of a sudden? Jessica asked, still looking puzzled. Ethan smiled faintly. Well, now that I'm trial separation, I figure I try to get back into some of my old routines. Oh, I see. Jessica nodded thoughtfully, a new eagerness sparking in her eyes. Well, could I come with you? I like to run too. You want to run too? Ethan paused, looking back at her. Seeing she seemed serious, he asked, puzzled. Why the sudden interest? Jessica furrowed her brow, pretending to think hard before replying. For my health. Yes, definitely for my health. She'd racked her brain, and that was the best lame excuse she could come up with. The real reason, of course, was Ethan. Since she was actively trying to win him over, she couldn't possibly pass up any chance to spend time alone with him. All right then, Ethan shrugged, seeming indifferent. We can run together tomorrow morning. Okay, it's a plan. A smile bloomed on Jessica's face. Truthfully, she disliked all forms of exercise since she was a kid, especially hating gyms. But if it was for Ethan, well, she was willing to rise to the challenge. 7 a.m. The jarring ring of an alarm clock shattered the quiet of the room. Ethan slowly woke up, grabbed his phone, and silenced the alarm. He glanced over at the bed. Jessica had been woken by the noise, but after rolling over, she buried her head under the covers and went back to sleep. Ethan hadn't originally planned to set an alarm, worried about disturbing Jessica. But when he found out she wanted to join him for his morning run, his concerns faded. He swung his legs out of bed and spoke to the lump under the covers. If you still want to run, you need to get up now. If not, I'm going by myself. With that, he headed to the bathroom to wash up. Under the warm covers, Jessica drifted in a sleepy haze, her eyelids too heavy to open. She was utterly exhausted. It couldn't be helped. As a valley girl with no job to get to, she wasn't accustomed to early mornings, usually sleeping until she woke up naturally. Getting up at 7 was a real struggle for her. But despite her desperate desire for sleep, the thought of running with Ethan spurred her body into action. She threw back the covers and sat up, glancing towards the bathroom. Ethan was already inside, washing up. Jessica yawned, looking out the window. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a serene quiet over the world. It was clearly still early, perfect weather for crawling back under the covers. Ugh, I just want to sleep a little longer, she thought. Jessica's eyelids drooped as another wave of drowsiness washed over her, threatening to pull her back under. No, I have to run with Ethan later. Get a grip, Jessica. Jessica shook her head vigorously, then slapped her cheeks, trying to force herself awake. It didn't work. She was still impossibly sleepy. Until she pinched her thigh hard. The sharp pain made her gasp, jolting her fully awake. Ow, Jessica rubbed her thigh. But it's worth it to run with Ethan. The thought of the upcoming run filled her with anticipation. About 15 minutes later, Ethan finished washing up, went downstairs first to wait for Jessica outside the manor. Under the morning sun, Ethan stood by the roadside, stretching while planning their route. Since Jessica's family manor was located in the southern outskirts of Green Valley, surrounded by forests, the nearby roads were quiet with very little traffic. Conveniently, there was a park 24 miles west of the manor. Ethan's plan was simple. Run along the road to the park, do a few laps there, and then run back to the manor. That would complete their morning run. Ethan. As Ethan was stretching, he suddenly heard a sweet, gentle female voice call his name. Ethan turned. Jessica stood gracefully at the manor entrance, her exquisitely beautiful face blooming with a smile. Her bright eyes gazed directly at him, twinkling with amusement. Jessica wore a light green short-sleeve top, white loose-fitting casual straight-leg pants, and white sneakers. The whole outfit had a refreshing, eye-catching appeal. Standing there in the golden sunlight, she looked ethereal and stunningly beautiful. Unlike usual, Jessica had tied her long hair up into a high ponytail today. As she walked gracefully towards him, the high ponytail swung back and forth in the morning sun, radiating youthful energy and vitality. Today, she traded some of her usual sophisticated elegance for a brighter, sweeter, more youthful vibe. Gazing at the beautiful girl before him, Ethan found himself momentarily lost for words. Even though he saw Jessica's beauty every day, he was still struck by her appearance at this moment. What shame, he thought. A girl this gorgeous, a total knockout, is against marriage. She's destined to be a goddess forever out of reach for every man. An inexplicable sense of regret washed over Ethan. But then he thought maybe it was better for a girl like Jessica to stay single. After considering it, it seemed like no man in the world was truly worthy of her beauty. Whoever she ended up with, Ethan felt, would be a waste of such perfection. Jessica reached Ethan and noticed his slightly dazed expression. "What's wrong?" she asked a little anxiously. "Is my makeup messed up?" She thought she must have botched her makeup and nervously covered her face, afraid of looking bad in front of Ethan. She put on makeup specifically to look beautiful for the boy she liked. Unfortunately, time had been tight, and worried Ethan would get impatient waiting downstairs, she had only managed a light, simple look. "No, it looks great." Ethan snapped back to reality and nodded gently. Truthfully, if Jessica hadn't mentioned it, he wouldn't even have noticed she was wearing makeup. Her bare face wasn't that different from her usual made-up look. After all, she was naturally stunning. Makeup was merely an enhancement. "Oh good." Jessica let out a soft sigh of relief. "You know, I just realized you look really good with your hair in a ponytail." Ethan noticed that this different style gave Jessica a distinct kind of beauty. "Really?" Jessica's eyes lit up, and a smile instantly tugged at the corners of her lips. Usually, she cultivated a gentle, sophisticated style, often wearing her hair down to appear elegant and mature. But because of the run today, she'd uncharacteristically tied her hair up. Come to think of it, this was the first time she'd worn a ponytail in front of Ethan. She hadn't expected to receive a compliment from him for it. It made her absolutely thrilled. "Yeah, really nice." Ethan nodded with a smile. Jessica lifted her smooth chin, a hint of playful pride creeping onto her face. Well, I'm naturally beautiful, of course I look good." An idea seemed to strike her. Her eyes darted thoughtfully before she spoke again, a little shyly. "So, if I run with you every day from now on, should I wear a ponytail? What do you think?" She lifted her clear eyes to gaze earnestly at Ethan, a glimmer of anticipation within them. "Sure. A ponytail is more practical for running anyway." "Great, then it's settled." Jessica beamed, overjoyed. "Come on, it's getting late. Let's start our run." Ethan glanced at his watch. Seeing it was almost 8 a.m., he was ready to begin. "Okay." Jessica nodded, smiling. Then the two set off along the empty, quiet road, heading towards the park to the west. They ran side by side in the cool morning breeze. With Jessica consciously matching his pace, their strides fell into perfect sync as they moved forward together. Soon, the rhythmic sound of their unified footsteps echoed on the deserted road. Under the golden morning sun, their two figures gradually receded into the distance. Jessica turned her head, gazing at Ethan's profile beside her, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Doing something together with the person you like. This feels so good." They ran together along the road. Jessica kept glancing over at the tall boy beside her, a soft smile playing on her lips. She was clearly in high spirits. And Jessica felt wonderful. Running with the guy she liked made the whole morning feel perfect. The sun felt warm on her skin, and the air itself seemed sweet. But the feeling didn't last long. After just a few minutes, Jessica started to slow down. Her legs began to ache, and she gasped for breath. The magic of the morning vanished. All Jessica felt now was exhaustion. Ethan glanced back at her, a resigned look on his face. He knew she was hitting her limit. Well, what could he expect? She was a valley girl through and through, not exactly the athletic type. Managing even a few minutes was pushing it for her. I can't run anymore, Ethan." Jessica finally ground to a halt, bending over and gasping for air. Ethan stopped, sighing inwardly. He turned to face her, realizing their morning run was over before it had barely begun. "You okay? Can you walk?" Ethan crouched beside her, his voice tinged with resignation. "My legs are killing me. I can't walk," Jessica mumbled, pouting, her expression utterly pitiful. "Okay, so what now? Should I call Robert to come pick us up?" Ethan suggested after a moment's thought. Jessica immediately shook her head. No, Robert's getting on in years. He'll still be asleep now. We can't bother him. Right? Let me think. Ethan frowned, pondering their options. Seeing his clueless expression, Jessica hesitated for a moment before tentatively suggesting, Ethan, maybe you could carry me back. Carry you? Yeah, piggyback. Are you sure? Ethan, my legs are killing me. Please carry me. Jessica pleaded softly, batting her eyelashes, putting on her most innocent, helpless expression. All right, fine. Ethan couldn't resist her wheedling and finally gave in. Thanks. Jessica's face immediately lit up, beaming. With a sigh, Ethan crouched down in front of her, presenting his back. Jessica didn't hesitate, scrambling onto his back. She threw her arms around his neck, and her long legs clamped around his waist like an octopus. Instantly, Ethan felt two distinctively soft mounds press against his back. Their weight was substantial. Ahem. Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly. He reached back, hooking his arms under her long legs to support her weight. Perhaps it was because they'd just been running, but Jessica was glistening with sweat, and with her pressed so close. Ethan caught her scent, a sweet, fresh fragrance that filled his senses almost overwhelmingly. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady his suddenly racing pulse. Then, with Jessica on his back, he started the walk home. Jessica rested her head on his shoulder, gazing at his profile with a soft smile, her eyes sparkling with unconcealable joy. This was the first time Ethan had ever given her a piggyback ride. Suddenly, the day felt significant, special. Ethan, Jessica asked, her eyes shining expectantly, did you ever carry Sarah like this? Ethan thought for a moment, then shook his head. No, I don't think I ever did. You might actually be the first girl I've ever given a piggyback ride to. He and Sarah had been together for 7 years, but thinking back, he realized he actually hadn't ever carried her like this. They'd held hands, hugged, kissed, slept together, pretty much everything a couple does. But giving her a piggyback ride? Apparently not. He wouldn't even have realized it if Jessica hadn't brought it up. 4 years dating, 3 years married, and they'd never done this? Strange. Really? Jessica's eyes lit up, shining with delighted surprise. She was the first girl Ethan had ever carried. A thrill went through Jessica. Yeah, I'm sure I haven't. Ethan confirmed after another moment's thought. Jessica really was the first. So you gave your first time to me? Jessica teased, grinning, her voice bubbling with amusement. First time? Ethan frowned. That sounded weird. The first time carrying a girl, obviously. What were you thinking? Jessica retorted, pouting slightly, a blush rising on her cheeks. She knew exactly what inappropriate thoughts had just crossed his mind. Ahem. Well, if you put it that way, then yes, you got my first time, Ethan replied, clearing his throat again, still a bit flustered. It's my first time too. Isn't that a coincidence? Jessica whispered playfully near his ear. Ethan felt her warm breath ghost across his neck, ticklish and warm, stirring an unfamiliar feeling inside him. He took another deep breath, trying to clear his head. Then he said, a touch dryly, well, it's not that much of coincidence. It's your first time being carried by a guy because you've never dated anyone. Ethan knew Jessica was staunchly anti-marriage. She didn't date, barely even had male friends. Her daily life involved almost zero interaction with men. Living like a nun, it would be weirder if she had been carried by a guy before. You have a point. Jessica sighed softly, letting her head rest fully on his shoulder. She gazed at his profile with a mock plaintive look. Thinking about it, I am pretty pathetic. Almost 30 and never even been in a relationship. So sad. It's all your fault. If you hadn't jumped into a relationship so fast back in college, I would have gone after you ages ago. Then I wouldn't still be single now. Jessica thought, feeling a pang of resentment mixed with regret for her missed chance. What's pathetic about it? You're the one who chose to be anti-marriage. Ethan retorted lightly. Someone like you? You could start dating any time you wanted. He privately thought her perpetual singledom was entirely self-inflicted. She was gorgeous, ridiculously wealthy, and had a great personality. Finding someone wouldn't be hard for her. But no, she had to stick to her anti-marriage stance and avoid men. No wonder she couldn't find anyone. That was then. I'm not anti-marriage anymore. Jessica quickly clarified, worried he'd keep labeling her that way. Now, all she wanted was for Ethan to fall for her. She couldn't have him thinking she wasn't interested in relationships. Oh, so you want to date now? Yeah, I'm actually thinking about finding a boyfriend. Jessica confirmed, nodding seriously. Seriously? Ethan was taken aback. He never thought Jessica, who was so vocal about being anti-marriage, would change her mind. Yeah, I really do. No, I mean, What made you change your mind all of a sudden? Ethan's curiosity was piqued. What could possibly make Jessica abandon her long-held stance? Oh, no big reason. Jessica said vaguely, offering a generic excuse. I just realized dying alone would be pretty depressing. Thought maybe I should try living a normal life, you know? She knew Ethan didn't like her that way yet, and she wasn't brave enough to confess her feelings. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Being alone, especially when you get older or sick. It's tough. Ethan nodded, accepting her explanation at face value. He figured she'd just come to her senses. So what about you? Jessica asked, trying to sound casual. You and Sarah are divorced now. Planning on finding a new girlfriend anytime soon? She desperately wanted to know where his head was at. Me? Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. I just got divorced. I'm not thinking that far ahead. Just taking things as they come. If I meet the right person, great. If not, I'm fine on my own. Oh, I see. Jessica murmured, nodding thoughtfully. Soon, they were back at the manor. Ethan carried Jessica inside on his back and gently set her down on the plush sofa. Jessica looked up at him wistfully, clearly reluctant for the ride to end. It seemed she wanted to stay on his back a bit longer, but now that they were inside, she had no reason to ask him to keep carrying her. Miss, is your leg all right? Should I have someone drive you to the hospital? No need, Robert. Thank you. Jessica smiled, gently refusing his offer. I just haven't exercised in ages, and running so far was a bit much for my legs. I'll be fine after resting. She knew his concern was genuine. Very well. Robert hesitated, but didn't press further, though worry still lingered in his gaze. Just then, a housekeeper thoughtfully arrived with a first aid kit. To Jessica, however, this felt like overkill. She didn't need it. Her legs were just aching a bit. Rest would be enough. Although she thought if someone massaged them, they'd probably feel better faster. An idea sparked her mind. Her eyes flickered mischievously as she turned to Ethan beside her. A sly smile played on her lips. After a couple of small coughs, she adopted a wheedling tone. Hubby, my legs hurt so much. Could you rub them for me, please? She tilted her delicate face upwards, her large, shimmering eyes wide with expectation. Ethan froze for a second, acutely aware of Robert Lewis and the housekeeper watching them. He felt distinctly uncomfortable. Looking down, his gaze met Jessica Smith's lovely eyes. Oh, okay. What else could he say? He resigned himself to agreeing. After all, he was supposed to be her husband. A husband rubbing his wife's aching legs was perfectly normal. Refusing would only make him look uncaring. Thank you, hubby. Seeing her plan succeed, Jessica beamed, her delight obvious. As soon as Ethan sat down beside her, she eagerly lifted her long, slender legs onto his lap. Ethan placed his hands on her thighs and began to gently knead the muscles. The thin fabric of her casual pants did little to hide the soft, yielding feel beneath his touch. He could clearly sense the faint warmth radiating from her skin, feel its smoothness and supple elasticity. Honestly, he thought they feel amazing. At the same time, a light, fresh fragrance drifted from her, mingling with the faintest hint of sweat from a run. The scent filled his senses with every breath, refreshing yet unsettling. Ethan fought to remain calm, but his heart shamelessly picked up its pace. He lowered his head, focusing intently on the massage to mask his discomfort. What Ethan didn't realize was that Jessica was watching him intently, her clear eyes filled with a soft, shimmering light and deep affection. Though she pressed her lips together, trying to contain her soaring happiness, a small smile persistently curved their corners. She gazed at him quietly, unwilling to tear her eyes away, as if committing this gentle side of him to memory. Witnessing this, Robert Lewis and the housekeeper shared pleased smiles. All they saw was Ethan diligently massaging their miss's legs. While their miss had eyes only for him, her gaze so full of adoration it was almost tangible. After a few minutes massaging her thighs, Ethan moved his hands along her legs, working on her knees and then her slender calves. It had to be admitted, Jessica's legs were exquisite, the kind leg connoisseurs dreamed of. Soft, rounded thighs gave way to slim, perfectly proportioned calves, long and straight. Even Ethan, who had no particular fixation, found himself captivated by their perfection. After a few more minutes, Robert Lewis excused himself for some task, and the housekeeper departed to prepare breakfast, leaving Ethan Thompson and Jessica Smith alone in the living room. How are they feeling? Any better? Ethan glanced up. Jessica was watching him with a soft gaze, a gentle smile lingering on her lips. A little better, she nodded, tempering her smile slightly before quickly adding, but they still need a little more rubbing before they stop hurting completely. All right, resigned, Ethan continued his work as her personal masseur. His hands resumed their travel over her slender legs, while Jessica leaned back with a sigh of contentment, eyes half closed, clearly savoring his touch. 10 minutes slipped by quickly. When Ethan next looked up, he found Jessica leaning against the sofa cushions, fast asleep. Sunlight slanted through the window, catching her profile and bathing her exquisite features in a soft golden light, like a halo. Her long, curled lashes rested against her cheeks. Her eyes were closed peacefully. Her nose was delicately shaped, her lips soft and pink. Even the fine, downy hairs on her face were visible in the light. She looked like a sleeping beauty, utterly serene and graceful. She's so beautiful, Ethan thought, gazing at her. A profound sense of calm washed over him, as if the noisy clamor of the world outside had ceased to exist. His reverie was broken when a cool morning breeze wafted in through an open window. Ethan shivered, the sensation finally drawing his eyes away from her captivating face. Jessica, still asleep, seemed to feel the chill too. She shivered faintly and curled into herself slightly. Ethan glanced at the open window with a slight frown. Carefully, he lifted her legs from his lap and settled them gently onto the sofa cushions. He stood, walked over to the window, and closed it. Then, he went upstairs, returning moments later with a soft blanket. Bending over the sofa, he gently draped it over Jessica. Looking down at her peaceful, sleeping form, a tender smile touched Ethan's lips. At that moment, a housekeeper walked over. "Young master, miss," she began, but before she could say more, Ethan turned to her, pressing a finger to his lips in a clear gesture. The housekeeper's eyes followed his glance to the sleeping Jessica on the sofa. Understanding dawned immediately. With a knowing smile, she nodded silently and retreated. 2 hours later, Jessica slowly stirred awake. She sat up on the sofa, looking around, only then realizing Ethan was no longer beside her. She stretched languidly, feeling remarkably refreshed from her nap. "Huh, what's this?" Just then, she noticed the blanket draped over her. A flicker of confusion crossed her face. Mister." Ethan covered that there. "He was worried you might get cold," a housekeeper explained with a smile, standing by the nearby dining table where she was arranging breakfast. "Ethan Thompson covered me." Jessica's head snapped up, her eyes sparkling with anticipation as she looked at the housekeeper. "Yes, Mr. Ethan Thompson did," the housekeeper confirmed with a nod and another smile. Hearing the confirmation, Jessica's eyes instantly lit up, and a smile visibly spread across her lips. Ethan Thompson had covered her with a blanket. Was he worried I'd catch a chill? So, he cares about me? At this thought, Jessica's eyes shone brightly, the happiness within them impossible to hide. In that moment, even the simple blanket felt extraordinarily significant. "You're awake?" Just then, Ethan Thompson descended the stairs, his gaze immediately falling on Jessica Smith on the sofa. Jessica Smith quickly turned her head, and upon seeing Ethan Thompson, the smile on her pretty face grew even wider. "MHM, I'm awake," Jessica Smith nodded sweetly, then added with a warm smile, "Thank you." It was nothing, just a small thing. Ethan Thompson waved it off nonchalantly. To him, it was merely a simple gesture. Mister Ethan, breakfast is ready." The housekeeper had finished setting out a lavish breakfast on the table, and the enticing aroma instantly filled the living room. "Okay, coming." Jessica Smith responded cheerfully, standing up and walking briskly over to Ethan Thompson's side. Then, quite naturally, she reached out, took Ethan's large hand in hers, and pulled him towards the dining table. Ethan Thompson simply offered a helpless smile. He was already used to this. They sat down and began to eat. "How's your leg? Does it still hurt?" Ethan Thompson asked with concern after taking a sip of his milkshake. It doesn't hurt anymore. Thanks to you rubbing it for me, honey," Jessica Smith said with a grin, calling him honey affectionately. "That's good." Ethan Thompson nodded, saying no more on the subject. Half an hour later, they finished breakfast. After relaxing on the first floor for a while, they went up to their room on the second floor together. Ethan Thompson changed into a fresh set of clothes, while Jessica Smith took a shower in the bathroom. She had worked up quite a sweat during her morning run and felt uncomfortably sticky, needing to wash herself clean. Ethan Thompson walked to the bathroom door and knocked. The sound of running water inside immediately stopped. "What is it?" Jessica Smith's slightly puzzled voice came from inside the bathroom. I need to head out. Sarah Young asked to meet yesterday, remember? I have to go now," Ethan Thompson informed her, ready to leave. Wait, I'm going to. Jessica Smith quickly called out, stopping him. It's fine, I can go alone. Didn't you just go for a run this morning? You should rest at home. My leg is all better because you massaged it. You're not allowed to leave me home alone. Air. All right, fine. I'll wait for you downstairs. Ethan Thompson relented, unable to refuse. Okay, you can go, Jessica Smith said, finally relieved. Ethan Thompson then turned and went downstairs, sitting on the sofa to wait quietly for Jessica Smith. About 10 minutes later, the sound of footsteps echoed from a staircase. Ethan Thompson looked up and saw Jessica Smith descending. She had clearly taken the time upstairs to meticulously apply her makeup. Her already stunning features were now enhanced, making her look even more radiant and captivating. One glance was enough to leave anyone breathless. She had undone her morning ponytail, and her long, waterfall-like hair cascaded over her shoulders, adding an air of sophistication and elegance. She had changed into a red, waist-cinching gown, which, paired with her vibrant red lipstick, gave her a coolly elegant and noble aura. Below the hem of the gown, a pair of slender, pale calves were revealed, straight and perfectly formed. Further down, she wore white high heels. As she gracefully descended, the heels clicked crisply against the floor. Well, do I look okay? Jessica Smith stopped in front of Ethan Thompson, standing tall and graceful before him, poised and ethereal. A hint of anticipation showed on her beautiful face. She had dressed up so carefully today, specifically to accompany Ethan Thompson to meet Sarah Young, wanting to look her absolute best. You look great, Ethan Thompson nodded. His expression seemed calm, but inwardly, he was quite stunned by her appearance. Then let's go. Jessica Smith beamed, satisfied. She walked over, linked her arm through Ethan Thompson's, and they headed out together. Ethan Thompson immediately caught the subtle fragrance wafting from Jessica Smith. It was different from usual, like a faint scent of roses, rich but not overpowering, unique and alluring, incredibly pleasant. She must have switched perfumes. He had to admit, it suited her current vibe perfectly. Green Valley, inside a street-side Starbucks. There weren't many customers, making the place feel a bit deserted. In a corner booth, two beautiful women were sipping coffee. Sarah Young, when Ethan Thompson gets here, let's talk to him calmly. He'll definitely agree to reconcile with you. He used to love you so much, and besides, you're pregnant now. Olivia Wilson said comfortingly, noticing the apprehension on her friend Sarah Young's face beside her. Sarah Young had also made a special effort to dress up before leaving home today. She was already beautiful, and with the careful primping, she looked even more stunning and captivating. The red dress she wore, in particular, lent her an extra touch of cool elegance compared to her usual style. Olivia Wilson refused to believe Ethan Thompson could remain angry when faced with such a beautiful wife. Okay, Olivia Wilson, I'll listen to you. Hearing her friend's words, Sarah Young nodded gently, feeling some of her anxiety subside. That's right, the old Ethan Thompson loved her so much. If she talked to him properly this time, he surely wouldn't pass up the chance to get back together. Plus, she was pregnant now. Ethan Thompson couldn't possibly remain indifferent. Thinking this, she gradually calmed down. By the way, Sarah Young, that Jessica Smith who's in that arrangement with your husband, what's she like? She wouldn't try anything with him behind your back, would she? Olivia Wilson suddenly asked curiously. Although she and Sarah Young were like sisters, she had never actually met Jessica Smith. So, she had no idea what Jessica Smith looked like, let alone what kind of person she was. Sarah Young waved a dismissive hand. Don't worry, Olivia Wilson. Jessica Smith is very pretty, and her family is loaded. She wouldn't be interested in my husband. Besides, Sarah Young added, she's not the marrying type. She's not really into men. Sarah Young had always felt quite secure about Jessica Smith. Ever since they became BFFs in college, Jessica Smith had shown zero interest in any of the boys around them. So many excellent guys had pursued Jessica Smith back then, and she had rejected them all. Why would she possibly fall for Ethan Thompson now? He had no money, no house, wasn't exceptionally handsome, and was divorced. There was no reason for Jessica Smith to like him. Is that so? Olivia Wilson nodded thoughtfully. Although Sarah Young seemed unconcerned, Olivia Wilson didn't quite share her certainty. She couldn't shake the feeling that something might happen between Jessica Smith and Ethan Thompson. After all, a trial separation was still a form of marriage. And with a single man and woman living together day in and day out, it was easy for sparks to fly. Just as the two were chatting, a yellow Lamborghini pulled up outside the cafe. Sarah, look, a Lamborghini. Olivia, always sharp-eyed, immediately spotted the car parked by the curb. Materialistic as ever, Her attention was instantly captured. She quickly nudged Sarah beside her, reminding her excitedly. She knew her sister-in-arms was just as interested in luxury sports cars of this caliber. She quickly nudged Sarah beside her, reminding her excitedly. She knew her BFF was just as interested in luxury sports cars of this caliber. Sarah turned her head and also saw the incredibly conspicuous Lamborghini through the glass window. A wave of longing rose in her eyes. But when she clearly saw the person in the driver's seat was her familiar husband, Ethan, her smile instantly vanished. Just then, Olivia also recognized the person getting out of the car as Sarah's husband, Ethan. Alongside him was a girl in a striking red, waist-cinching maxi dress. Sarah, is that Jessica? Olivia wasn't slow. She guessed the other woman's identity immediately. Yes, that's her. Sarah nodded lightly. Watching Jessica step out of the Lamborghini, she couldn't help the envy flickering in her eyes. Though they were BFFs, she had always envied and been jealous of Jessica. Without having to do anything, Jessica had enjoyed a privileged, affluent socialite lifestyle since childhood. She could buy any luxury item she wanted, drive any high-end car, live in manors. Meanwhile, Sarah could only afford a 1,000 SQ FT rented apartment, and the cosmetics she used and the car she drove were worlds apart from Jessica's. Honestly, if you had a BFF like that right beside you, while you were just ordinary folks, could you not be envious? Sarah wasn't just envious. She was jealous, because she desperately wanted the kind of lifestyle Jessica currently had. Of course, if it were just material possessions that surpassed hers, Sarah could maybe accept it. The key thing was, Jessica's looks were also stunningly high. This made Sarah, who had always considered herself attractive, feel like a mere foil next to Jessica every time, completely overshadowed, all the light stolen by Jessica. It seemed her only purpose beside Jessica was to accentuate the other's beauty. So, whether in terms of material wealth or looks, she always felt suppressed by Jessica. This left a constant imbalance in her heart. Her family is so rich. I'm so envious, Olivia murmured, her eyes practically glued to Jessica, filled with admiration. Soon, they saw Jessica and Ethan walk into the cafe side by side, heading straight for their table. Looking at Jessica before them, clad in that red maxi dress, elegant and coolly beautiful, refined and ethereal, especially the noble aura radiating from her, inside and out, Olivia and Sarah instantly felt a wave of pressure. Sarah, in particular, felt her own presence dim as she looked at Jessica. She had specifically dressed up to go out today. Who would have thought she'd end up clashing outfits with Jessica? The crucial difference was, Jessica, in red, looked utterly noble, while she, also in red, now felt like she was wearing a cheap knockoff, looking utterly plain and unremarkable. Olivia stared at Jessica, her gaze landing on that delicate, beautiful oval face, and felt a jolt. As a woman, she considered herself quite pretty, but seeing Jessica now dealt her a heavy blow. She found it hard to imagine how a girl could be this beautiful. That almost otherworldly, devastating beauty stunned you at first glance. Such an unreasonably gorgeous woman made Olivia look away, feeling suddenly self-conscious. Her gaze shifted to Ethan, standing beside Jessica. Looking at him now, Ethan did seem incredibly ordinary. Standing together, they really didn't look like a match. She had previously wondered if, during their trial separation, familiarity might breed affection. But now, she suddenly felt she'd been completely overthinking it. How could a girl as dazzlingly beautiful as Jessica possibly be interested in a divorced man with no money or property? Just ordinary folks. At the same time, Ethan and Jessica slowly sat down opposite them. What did you want to talk to me about? Go ahead, Ethan said calmly, his gaze indifferent as he looked at the two women across from him. At this moment, Sarah and Olivia instinctively focused their eyes on Ethan. They selectively averted their gazes from Jessica beside him, as if she were too dazzling for them to look at directly. Ethan, Sarah's pregnant. She's carrying your child. Stop being angry with her. Just get back together. Olivia cut straight to the chase, urging Ethan to reconcile. Ethan glanced at Sarah. She was looking back at him, her expression pitiful and aggrieved, as if suggesting that as the pregnant woman repeatedly upset by Ethan recently, she was the injured party. I've told you, if the child is mine when it's born, I will definitely raise it. But getting back together is impossible. Let's just part ways amicably, Ethan stated flatly, as if discussing the most ordinary matter. Hearing this, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. Ethan was still doubting she'd cheated, suspecting the child wasn't his. And he was so firm about not remarrying her. She had already swallowed her pride to come find him, yet his attitude was still so rigid. Sarah found it unbearable, annoyance flaring within her. But remembering Olivia telling her to stay calm, she just pressed her lips together, forcing herself to hold back. Olivia spoke earnestly. Ethan, of course the baby in Sarah's belly is yours. How could she possibly cheat on you? You should get back together with her right now. Pregnant women need a stable emotional environment. It's better for the baby. Ethan looked at Sarah, who slightly lifted her chin, an expression of agreement on her face. It was as if she too felt it was only natural that, being pregnant, Ethan should tolerate her more and shouldn't provoke her anger. Ethan gave a short laugh. I think I've made myself clear. If the child is mine, I'll support it. But her and I? Ethan gazed at Sarah opposite him, this woman who was once his wife, his eyes holding no trace of warmth anymore, only calm indifference. You and I are divorced. It was completely over between us the day we signed the papers at City Hall. Isn't this what you wanted? Consider your wish granted. Ethan stared at her coolly. You were the one who wanted the divorce. You want to get back together now? Sorry, impossible. Sarah's breath caught suddenly, as if she had lost something vital in an instant. Especially Ethan's last sentence. Isn't this what you wanted? Consider your wish granted. It felt like daggers, stabbing into her heart again and again. No, we agreed. It was a trial separation. This isn't what I wanted. It's not. Sarah shook her head frantically, rebutting Ethan indignantly. In her mind, none of this was real. Their divorce was fake. Ethan marrying Jessica was fake. Everything was fake. In 2 weeks, everything would go back to how it was. It shouldn't be like this. Sorry, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, divorced is divorced. There's no real or fake about it. We're done. Ethan, how could you? I'm pregnant, and you're still trying to upset me? Seeing Ethan's utterly unconcerned expression, Sarah felt a wave of fury, suddenly overcome with indignation. She was pregnant, yet Ethan was still confronting her like this, completely disregarding her feelings. I'm not trying to upset you, Ethan said, his face calm and his tone detached. I'm just telling you where I stand. If you can't accept what I'm saying, there's nothing I can do. I'm already speaking to you as calmly as possible. Seeing Ethan's indifferent expression, Sarah couldn't hold back any longer. She slammed her hand on the table and shot up, her face etched with grievance. Ethan, I'm not even asking you to apologize to me anymore. What more do you want? Do you expect me to apologize to you before you'll make up with me? In her eyes, as a pregnant woman, she had already shown Ethan more than enough tolerance. After all, in the past, whenever Ethan made her angry, she wouldn't even consider forgiving him unless he gave her a hefty cash gift or bought her a new bag. But now, she wasn't asking for money or a bag or even an apology from him. Yet, Ethan still wouldn't reconcile with her. To her, it felt like he was pushing his luck, taking her kindness for weakness. It was outrageous. Ethan looked at the emotional woman before him, his expression still calm, merely letting out a helpless sigh. You still don't get it. What I mean is, I won't apologize to you, and I don't need you to apologize to me. Because it's over between us. We can never go back to how things were. Do you understand? Hearing this, Sarah's face turned pale, and a mist formed in her eyes, threatening to spill over any second. She looked utterly wronged. Ethan, you've changed. You don't love me anymore. Before, whenever I was even slightly unhappy, you'd rush to comfort me, you'd apologize, ready to be at his beck and call. Now, I'm pregnant, and I'm this upset, but you won't even try to make me feel better. You don't love me anymore, sob. Sarah pointed at Ethan as if accusing a heartless lover, finally breaking down into tears, completely heartbroken. Seeing her cry, Ethan felt an urge to laugh. Honestly, considering she was pregnant, he had kept his tone very measured today. Even so, Sarah acted as if she'd suffered a terrible injustice. Ethan recalled all the times in the past when Sarah got angry, how he had been at his beck and call, groveling and apologizing. He felt like such an idiot back then. He was simply treating Sarah the way she used to treat him, and she couldn't take it. Yet, she never considered how unreasonable she had been. Jessica, who had been silent all along, also felt a slight urge to chuckle as she watched Sarah's tear-streaked face. Ethan hadn't even said anything particularly harsh, yet Sarah acted like the world had ended. When she used to order Ethan around like a slave, did she ever stop to think if she was being unreasonable? Jessica could only think. When you stop putting someone who's used to being worshipped on a pedestal, they automatically assume it's your fault. Sarah, stop crying, stop crying. Olivia quickly stood up, helped Sarah sit down, and started comforting her. Then, she turned and shot Ethan a glare, speaking with clear dissatisfaction. Ethan, Sarah is pregnant. Can't you, as a man, cut her some slack? Besides, she's carrying your child in her belly. And Sarah even spoke to you nicely this time. You should seize this chance to make up with her. Let me tell you, if you miss this opportunity, it'll be much harder to win Sarah back later. Olivia pleaded earnestly. In her view, Ethan was acting quite ungentlemanly. Sarah had taken the initiative to reconcile and didn't even demand an apology, yet Ethan remained stubborn and refused to make peace. He was really pushing it. If her husband dared talk to her like that, she would have slapped him across the face long ago. Ethan frowned slightly, feeling annoyed. The underlying message from both Olivia and Sarah was clear. We're giving you a chance to reconcile, so you should gratefully accept it. If you don't, you're the one in the wrong. This exhausted Ethan's patience. He had no desire to waste any more breath on these two jerks. All right, let's end the conversation here for today, he said curtly. I'll make my position clear. I will not reconcile, and we will not get back together. That's my stance. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Ethan finished speaking and stood up, ready to depart. Stop right there. Seeing him about to leave, Sarah panicked, jumping to her feet and calling out to him. Ethan turned back, frowning. What else do you want? Seeing the impatience on Ethan's face infuriated Sarah. But remembering she hadn't gotten to the main point yet, she forced down her anger. Ethan, my parents are coming to Green Valley tomorrow. My father needs surgery, and they still don't know we're having a trial separation. So stop being stubborn and just make up with me. My father needs someone to take care of him while he's hospitalized for surgery. Besides, we can't let them find out we're separated, otherwise my parents will blame me. Ethan stared at her, utterly speechless at the entitled way she spoke, as if it was perfectly natural and his absolute duty to rush over and take care of her father just because he was sick. Sarah, you're such a filial daughter. Why don't you go take care of him? We're already divorced. You still expect me to go slave away for your father? What are you thinking? In the past, whenever Sarah's parents were ill, it was always Ethan who was at their beck and call, taking care of everything. But because the elderly couple had never been satisfied with Ethan as a son-in-law, no matter how diligently he cared for them or tried to curry favor, all he ever got in return was the cold shoulder. Now, they were divorced, and she still expected him to go work himself to the bone for them? Ethan would have to be crazy to agree. Sarah flew into a rage. Ethan, how can you say such a thing? He's your father-in-law. Isn't it your responsibility to take care of him? Besides, I'm pregnant. I need someone to take care of me. You expect me to take care of him? Do you have any conscience left? From her perspective, she had spoken calmly with Ethan today, lowered herself as much as possible, and given him a chance to reconcile. Yet, Ethan repeatedly refused to appreciate the opportunity she offered. He was simply ungrateful. Sarah, your father needs surgery, right? Ethan said coolly. I suggest you go to the hospital to get your head checked. With that parting shot, Ethan turned and walked away. He truly had no patience left. Trying to communicate with a jerk who couldn't understand plain language was like talking to a brick wall. So damn tiring. Ethan, don't go. Come back. Get back here. Watching Ethan turn and leave without a shred of hesitation, Sarah panicked, screaming desperately at his retreating back. You're not allowed to leave. Get back here. However, it was completely useless. Ethan ignored her completely. Ethan, come back. Did you hear me? Finally, as Ethan paid her no mind, Sarah seemed to completely lose it. Her shouts became shrill, and she descended into hysterics. Yet, Ethan's figure didn't pause for even a moment as he walked out of the coffee shop. Ethan, you bastard. You jerk. I'm pregnant, and you're still trying to piss me off? You. Art, I'm going to explode. Sarah was trembling with rage, her face flushed crimson. Sarah, calm down. Sarah, please, you're pregnant. Olivia quickly stood up to soothe her, placing her hands on Sarah's shoulders, trying to get her to sit back down. But Sarah, consumed by anger, was a total drama queen, harder to handle than a wildcat. Across from them, Jessica watched Sarah's frantic, irrational state with a faint smile playing on her lips. A wave of satisfaction washed over her. The boy she'd loved for 17 years. These past few years with Sarah, he'd been treated worse than a dog. Ordered around constantly, his feelings completely disregarded. Sarah had even cheated on him left and right behind his back. She'd done so many things to wrong Ethan. And now, just because Ethan refused to remarry her, she couldn't handle it. It served her right. Ethan, you bastard, you jerk. Why don't you just go die? Wah! After her bout of helpless fury, Sarah finally broke down, sobbing pitifully. Only then could Olivia manage to push her back in her seat. Okay, stop crying, Sarah. Don't cry anymore. Olivia breathed a small sigh of relief, gently patting Sarah's back as she tried to comfort her. Wah! Olivia, Ethan's changed. He's really changed. He wasn't like this before. Wah! Sarah cried, her face a mask of grievance, tears streaming uncontrollably. The Ethan she remembered loved her so much, loved her to the bone, loved her more than anything. He couldn't bear to make her angry, let alone yell at her like this. Back then, Ethan only spoiled her, indulged her, put her on a pedestal, treated her like a princess, taking meticulous care of her. But now, she couldn't see any trace of that old love in his eyes anymore. There was only endless indifference. The way Ethan looked at her wasn't like he was looking at the woman he loved, but more like he was looking at an idiot. Sarah couldn't accept it. She felt incredibly hurt. "Sarah, stop crying. We have business to attend to. Your father's medical bills, remember?" Olivia, seeing her comforting words weren't working, had to remind Sarah of their other goal for the day. Besides trying to reconcile with Ethan, they needed to get the rest of the payment from Jessica. Otherwise, Sarah's father couldn't have his surgery. At the mention of this, Sarah regained some composure. She gradually calmed down and stopped crying, wiping her tears as she looked up at Jessica seated opposite her. "Jessica, my father has stomach cancer. He needs surgery, and we need the money urgently. So, can you give me the rest of the payment in advance?" Jessica thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll transfer the remaining $30,000 plus to you shortly." Right now, Jessica just wanted to cut ties with Sarah completely, to have nothing more to do with her. Since Sarah was asking for the remaining payment, she had no reason, legally or morally, to refuse. Once the payment was made, they'd be done with each other. "Wait." Sarah paused, doubting her ears. She looked uncertainly at Jessica. "Isn't it $100,000 plus?" Jessica gave a light smile. "The reward I initially promised you is indeed substantial, but a significant portion of it belongs to Ethan." Translator's note. Original text had confusing/contradictory figures like $7. $25 million here, simplified for clarity based on later dialogue. "I already gave you the $30,000 plus deposit last time, so naturally, I can only give you another $30,000 plus now. As for the rest, I'll pay it to Ethan." Hearing this explanation, both Sarah and Olivia were stunned. Sarah, especially, looked frozen, her expression filled with disbelief. "No, Jessica, that's not what we agreed. That money was all for me. Besides, Ethan and I are married. What's his is mine. Just give the remaining $100,000 plus to me. You don't need to give it to him." Sarah became agitated, speaking quickly, trying to argue her case. Having $100,000 plus suddenly shrink to $30,000 plus was a huge blow she couldn't accept. "Sorry, Ethan told me he won't be remarrying you. Therefore, I have to give him his fair share of the payment. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair to him," Jessica stated calmly, her voice even. Sarah snapped, slamming her hand on the table and glaring resentfully. "Jessica, the day you and my husband registered your marriage, you promised me you'd give me the remaining $100,000 plus. Now you want to give half my money to Ethan? How can you go back on your word?" Jessica scoffed lightly, meeting her gaze without flinching. "You must be misremembering. I said that after 2 weeks, I would transfer the remaining $100,000 plus to you guys. I said you guys, which naturally includes Ethan." "You..." Sarah paused. She frowned, trying hard to recall. It seemed Jessica had indeed said you guys back then. For a moment, she couldn't refute it. "Jessica, I told you Ethan and I are married. His is mine. Just give his share to me. Don't make it complicated by splitting it," Sarah said impatiently, a wave of panic rising in her heart. She was terrified Jessica would actually give Ethan what she considered her money. She was counting on getting the remaining $100,000 plus today. After paying her father's medical bills, she planned to use the rest for a world tour, something she'd always dreamed of. But if Jessica only gave her $30,000 plus after the hospital fees, there wouldn't be much left. Her world tour dream would be shattered. Not only that, but the remaining money wouldn't last her very long either. She couldn't handle this. "Sarah, I told you, I'm only giving you $30,000 plus. Take it or leave it." Jessica smiled faintly, looking completely unbothered. Ethan was the one who went through the trial separation with her. Ethan was the one who played along with her act. Sarah did nothing from start to finish, but was set to walk away with a hefty sum. And even then, she wasn't satisfied, wanting to snatch Ethan's share too. This woman was simply insatiable. Seeing Jessica's nonchalant attitude, Sarah instantly flew into a rage, reminded of Ethan's similar indifference earlier. "Jessica, are you even my BFF? Whose side are you on?" Sarah couldn't hold back any longer. She shot up from her seat, pointing a finger at Jessica's nose, demanding loudly. In her mind, she and Ethan were just having a trial separation. Although they were having a little conflict now, they would eventually remarry. Ethan's money should be her money. Of course, her money was still hers. Jessica was her BFF, She should unconditionally be on her side, unconditionally look out for her interests. But now, Jessica was working against her, completely disregarding their years of friendship. This infuriated her. Jessica looked up at Sarah's spiteful face, her own expression remaining calm and composed. I was just about to tell you, Sarah. Truth is, I've had enough of you for a long time now. There's no need for us to be BFFs anymore. I'll transfer the remaining $30,000 payment to you today, and then we're square. Hearing this, Sarah's eyes widened, staring at Jessica in disbelief. They had been BFFs since college, 7 years of sisterhood. But today, Jessica suddenly wanted to cut ties completely. What she found hardest to accept was that the old Jessica had always taken her side. No matter what Sarah said or did, Jessica would support her. She would stand by her unconditionally. But now, Jessica was saying she couldn't stand her anymore. Did Jessica really think she was terrible all along? Jessica, are you serious? You really want to break up our friendship? Sarah's fiery temper flared up. She trembled with anger, her chest heaving. Yes, from now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Jessica nodded seriously, her words leaving no room for sentiment. Fine, don't you regret this? Had enough of me, have you? Well, let me tell you, I've had enough of you too. Not wanting to seem weak, Sarah immediately shot back. Perfect, let's just never see each other again. Jessica gave her a cool glance, stood up, and left. She didn't want to stay there a second longer. Jessica, who do you think you are? Just because your family has some stinking money? What's so great about that? Why are you acting so high and mighty? Sarah pointed at Jessica's retreating back, ranting and raving, venting her fury. However, Jessica completely ignored her and walked out of the coffee shop. Then, under Sarah's furious gaze, Jessica opened the door of a Lamborghini and got into the passenger seat. She and Ethan drove off, leaving Sarah behind. Jessica, you gold digger. Breaking up with me, huh? You'll regret this. The more Sarah thought about it, the angrier she got, still cursing bitterly. Sarah, calm down, Olivia said, trying to soothe her. They've already left. They can't hear you anymore. Olivia watched her friend's drama queen display, feeling a headache coming on, but mostly helplessness. She could only try to patiently console her. Olivia, Jessica went too far. She didn't even back me up, and now she wants to end our friendship. Stop. As Sarah spoke, a wave of self-pity washed over her, and she couldn't help crying again. Ethan didn't want to reconcile, and now her BFF had dumped her too. At this moment, she truly understood what it felt like to be deserted by everyone. She felt so wronged. She hadn't even done anything wrong. Her husband didn't want her. Her BFF broke up with her. Why? She hadn't done anything wrong. On what grounds? Why was she always the one getting hurt? Okay, Sarah, don't be so upset. Olivia comforted. Try to look on the bright side. Even though Jessica only gave you the $30,000, at least you don't have to worry about your dad's medical bills now. Olivia's words didn't help. Mentioning the money only made Sarah feel a wave of despair. Now that Jessica was only willing to give her $30,000, her father's medical bills were covered. But her long-planned world tour was now down the drain. And after paying her father's medical bills, she wouldn't have much savings left herself. This meant she would have to live frugally from now on. She couldn't maintain her previous socialite lifestyle anymore. How could she possibly be happy about that? Olivia, what am I going to do now? Sarah suddenly felt her future looked bleak, and tears welled up again. All right, Sarah, don't spiral, Olivia reminded her. Focus on the immediate problem. Your parents are coming to Green Valley tomorrow. Since Ethan won't meet them, how are you going to explain things? All right, Mom and Dad are coming tomorrow. What am I going to do? Stop. Thinking about this, Sarah felt lost and unsure again. Compared to her bleak future, her parents' arrival tomorrow was an imminent crisis. That was the problem she needed to solve right now. Sarah, maybe you should just tell your parents the truth, Olivia suggested tentatively. With Ethan refusing to see them, you can't really hide it anyway. Well, Sarah bit her lip, her expression conflicted, but finally, she lowered her head in resignation. I guess that's the only way. Just then, Sarah's phone pinged with a notification. She picked it up and saw a transfer notification. It showed that a $30,000 transfer had been deposited into her bank account. However, looking at the notification, she couldn't feel happy at all. She looked completely dejected and pitiable. Come on, Sarah, pull yourself together, Olivia encouraged. Think positively. Even if Ethan doesn't want to reconcile right now, you're still pregnant. With the baby, your connection can't be completely broken. You can still find opportunities to win Ethan back later. Think about it. He used to love you so much. Besides, even if Ethan really doesn't want to get back together and doesn't care about the baby, Surely his family won't ignore their grandchild? Don't his parents want to hold their grandbaby? Hearing this, a flicker of light returned to Sarah's dull eyes. That's right. The old Ethan loved her so much. How could he just stop loving her like that? She could still win him back later. Maybe reconciliation wasn't impossible. And even if Ethan was dead set against reconciling, she still had the baby. Ethan's parents had always wanted a grandchild. They always wanted her to carry on the Thompson family line. Even just for the baby's sake, Ethan's parents would surely persuade Ethan to get back together with her. If she and Ethan could reconcile, maybe she could even get the remaining $7.25 million from Jessica. Maybe she could still go on her world tour and continue living her socialite lifestyle after all. Thinking this through, Sarah felt a bit better and regained some confidence in the future. Olivia, thank you. Yes, I can't give up. I still have a baby. Meanwhile, Ethan and Jessica were driving back to the manor in the Lamborghini. The weather is beautiful today. Jessica felt the gentle breeze, looked up at the sunny sky, her mood indescribably cheerful. After breaking ties with Sarah, she felt as if she had shed heavy shackles. She felt so much lighter. From now on, she no longer had to tolerate that vain, materialistic woman. Yeah, it really is nice out. Ethan breathed in the fresh air, his mood also improving. Remembering Sarah's furious yet helpless expression earlier brought him a sense of satisfaction. The old Sarah had always been so high and mighty, always ordering him around. His messy marriage had been so stifling. Today felt like vindication for the pathetic pushover he used to be. At 12 p.m., the two returned to the manor. Just as they parked the car at the entrance, two security personnel immediately approached, respectfully opening the car doors for them. After Ethan and Jessica got out, one of the security guards attentively drove their car into the underground garage. "Sir, wait for me." Ethan was about to step into the manor when he heard a sweet, gentle girl's voice beside him. He turned to see Jessica quickly walking over. Then, she reached out a delicate, fair hand and familiarly took his larger one, interlacing their fingers and holding on tightly. Let's go." A joyful smile spread across Jessica's pretty face as she led Ethan, walking briskly towards the manor entrance. Ethan just sighed resignedly, saying nothing more. He was already used to it. However, even though he was used to it, holding Jessica's small hand still unsettled him somewhat. Jessica's hand was tiny, slender and soft, smooth and tender, and cool to the touch, very comfortable to hold. Especially since, whenever they held hands, Jessica always gripped tightly. This caused their palms to press firmly together, perfectly sealed, allowing both to clearly feel the warmth transmitted through their touch. It gave Ethan a strange, indescribable feeling. Of course, what Ethan didn't know was that while this hand-holding had become routine for him, Jessica was still incredibly happy about it, her eyes even holding a hint of smug satisfaction. This was the boy she had liked for 17 years. She felt like she could never hold his hand enough. She truly wished she could hold Ethan's hand like this every day, forever, without ever letting go. However, she also understood that to hold Ethan's hand forever, she needed him to fall for her, to truly be with her. Only then could she hold his hand rightfully and naturally whenever she wanted. Then, she wouldn't just hold his hand, she could kiss his lips, sleep beside him, and even do intimate things with him. As she thought about it, Jessica suddenly realized her thoughts were becoming a bit impure. Her pretty face couldn't help but flush crimson. But honestly, she really did want to be like a real couple with Ethan, doing intimate, perhaps even R-rated things. Yet she knew now wasn't the time. Fortunately, the current Ethan had completely given up on reconciling with Sarah. She now had the chance to pursue him. Everything was moving in the right direction. Right now, she had only one goal: find a way to win Ethan over and make Sarah give up completely. Then, Ethan would belong only to her, and she would give all her tenderness to him alone. Back inside the manor, a housekeeper immediately brought over sliced fruit and 2 strawberry smoothies. Ethan sat on the sofa, eating fruit and sipping the chilled strawberry smoothie, feeling completely at ease. Having just seen Sarah, he couldn't help but recall the miserable days when they were together. Back then, as soon as he got home, he had to wait on Sarah hand and foot, taking meticulous care of her, and on top of that, handle all the household chores. How could it compare to now? He came back, did nothing, just sat on the sofa enjoying the air conditioning, while a housekeeper brought him juice and various fruits. Compared to before, it was worlds apart. Sarah wanting to reconcile? She must be dreaming. He wouldn't remarry her even if his life depended on it. "Sir, here, eat this." As Ethan was reminiscing about his past struggles, Jessica suddenly used a fruit fork to pick up a piece of fruit and personally fed it to his mouth. Oh, Ethan subconsciously opened his mouth, took a bite, and started eating. Anyway, the role he was playing now was Jessica's husband. Whatever Jessica did, he just had to go along with it. Besides, he was divorced now, single, so it didn't matter anymore. Seeing Ethan accept her feeding him so naturally, Jessica couldn't help but smile. Although it was just a small, not overly intimate gesture, it couldn't stop Jessica from feeling happy, because she could feel the distance between her and Ethan closing little by little. If things continued like this, one day they would become a couple. By the way, I remember there's a fitness center in the manor, right? Suddenly, Ethan turned to her and asked, somewhat out of the blue, "Yes, there is. Why? Are you going to work out now?" Jessica nodded, then asked curiously, "Yeah, I was thinking about it." Since Ethan had decided to start working out, he naturally couldn't slack off. He had nothing else to do right now anyway, and since there was a gym right here in the manor, he might as well go exercise. "Then I'll take you there later. I want to work out too." Jessica thought for a moment and proposed joining him. Right now, she just wanted to win Ethan over quickly and naturally didn't want to miss any opportunity to be alone with him. Are you sure?" Ethan glanced at her, his eyes filled with doubt. He hadn't forgotten how Jessica had accompanied him on his morning run, only to nearly exhaust herself halfway through. With Jessica's physical condition, going to the gym was just asking for trouble. He was genuinely afraid she'd go, not last long, and end up crying from exhaustion. "Of course I'm sure. I want to work out too." Jessica nodded seriously, then gave a slightly sheepish smile. "Of course, I'll pace myself this time and try my best not to hold you back, huh?" She still had some self-awareness, knowing her physique was poor and working out was indeed a bit difficult for her. So her plan was go to the gym later and just go through the motions. The main goal was companionship. When Ethan was sweating from exertion, she could thoughtfully hand him a towel to wipe his sweat or bring him water. Maybe she could even use the workout as an excuse to create some opportunities for physical contact. Thinking about it this way, she actually started looking forward to it, feeling a stir of excitement. "All right then, I'll go change. We'll head down shortly." Ethan didn't say anything further, simply got up and went upstairs to change. Okay, go ahead." Jessica nodded happily, watching his back as he went upstairs. Only when Ethan's figure disappeared at the top of the stairs did she reluctantly tear her gaze away. Then, her eyes fell on Ethan's unfinished strawberry smoothie, and a mischievous smile appeared on her lips. "There's still so much juice left. Don't you know wasting things is shameful?" Well, since I'm such a good person, I'll help you out." Jessica picked up Ethan's half-finished strawberry smoothie and drank it with relish. And strangely enough, she felt this smoothie tasted distinctly sweeter than her own. A few minutes later, Ethan came downstairs, changed. Jessica was sitting quietly on the sofa waiting for him. Seeing him descend, she immediately stood up. "Can you wait here for a second? I'm going to change too." "Go ahead." Ethan nodded at her. Jessica was still wearing the same red, belted long dress, which definitely wasn't suitable for a workout. "Okay." Jessica flashed a sweet smile before heading upstairs. Ethan sat down on the sofa, bored while waiting for Jessica. As he waited, he suddenly felt thirsty. He instinctively reached for the strawberry smoothie he'd been drinking earlier, only to find that the glass he thought was half full was somehow empty now. Did I remember wrong? Ethan scratched his head, puzzled. He didn't dwell on it. Then, he noticed Jessica's strawberry smoothie on the table. She'd only drunk a small portion, leaving more than half. Ethan hesitated for a moment before picking up her glass. So much left. Can't let it go to waste. Having found an excuse, Ethan guiltlessly downed the rest of the smoothie. Besides, they often fed each other bites of food these days, so indirect kisses and the like had become pretty normal between them. Ethan figured drinking from her glass was perfectly normal too. Yeah, totally normal. After finishing the smoothie, Ethan put the glass down. Still bored, he started snacking on some fruit. About 10 minutes later, Jessica came downstairs. She had changed into a black sports bra and matching black fitted workout leggings. She'd also swapped into flat athletic shoes. Her stunning, curvy figure was on full display, revealing large expanses of fair skin. Incredibly eye-catching. For practicality during exercise, she had once again tied her long hair back into a ponytail. Standing there elegantly, her combination of stunning looks, voluptuous figure, and radiant fair skin was an attraction for men that was simply off the charts. Ethan had always considered himself a man with decent self-control. Even when seeing beautiful women on the street, he wasn't the type to gawk shamelessly like some guys. But now, looking at Jessica standing before him, he found he couldn't tear his eyes away. Jessica, meanwhile, stood somewhat shyly before Ethan. An outfit like hers might not be uncommon in a fitness center, but for her, it felt incredibly bold and revealing. The reason she wore it was simple. She desperately wanted to show off her considerable assets to the boy she liked. What girl doesn't want to present her best self to the boy she fancies? Jessica certainly did. Back in college, her roommates always complimented her figure, saying any guy who ended up with her would be incredibly lucky. With a body like that, Emma would weep with envy, probably cry her eyes out. It couldn't be helped. Jessica's proportions were just too perfect, the kind of figure countless women dreamed of. Whenever her roommates praised her figure back then, her first thought was always, would Ethan like this type of body? So, seizing today's opportunity, Jessica had boldly chosen this figure-hugging outfit. She wanted to see Ethan's reaction. She was filled with anticipation, hoping Ethan would like her body. She hoped the figure she was so proud of would capture his attention. That was also why she'd specifically put her hair back in a ponytail again, because Ethan had mentioned during their morning run that she looked good with it that way. What's wrong? Is something the matter? Jessica asked timidly, lowering her head slightly as she felt Ethan's rather heated gaze. No, nothing. It's just, you have a really great figure. Ethan quickly averted his eyes, offering a sincere compliment. Jessica's figure truly was amazing, especially highlighted by today's outfit. Her impressive bust, slender waist, full hips, and long, straight legs, combined with her fair, smooth, luminous skin. She was simply exquisite. Really, Jessica's eyes lit up as she looked up at Ethan, surprise practically spilling out of them. At the same time, an irrepressible smile touched her lips. Really? Ethan nodded seriously. Thank you. Jessica was overjoyed, her eyes sparkling, the pleasure in them unmistakable. But why are you carrying a shirt? Ethan glanced at Jessica's hand, noticing she was holding a white button-up. Oh, there are a few male security personnel by the entrance, Jessica explained. I feel a bit awkward walking out like this, so I thought I'd wear this over my top outside and take it off once we get to the fitness center. Her usual style was quite modest. She'd never worn anything this bold before. She felt too self-conscious to appear before the household security staff dressed so revealingly. Besides, and most importantly, she only wanted Ethan to see her figure like this, not anyone else. All right then, let's go. Ethan nodded, stealing one last glance at Jessica before turning to leave. Jessica slipped the shirt on and hurried after him. They left the manor and walked over to the fitness center located on the east side of the estate. The fitness center was large and fully equipped with all sorts of exercise machines. Although Jessica rarely worked out and hardly ever visited the fitness center, it was cleaned daily, so the space looked bright, spotless, and immaculate. Once inside, Jessica took off the white shirt, revealing her voluptuous, fair figure once more. Ethan couldn't help himself and glanced at her a few more times before forcibly turning his attention to the training equipment in the center. He walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows where 2 treadmills were placed. He planned to run for about 30 minutes first, then move on to other exercises. Ethan stretched briefly, doing a few simple warm-up movements. Jessica stood beside him, mimicking his warm-up routine. Then, they both stepped onto the treadmills. Ethan took a deep breath and began his workout in earnest, running with focused concentration. Jessica, in contrast, clearly had her mind elsewhere. She knew perfectly well she was just here to tag along and keep Ethan company. So, she set her treadmill speed incredibly slow. Slow enough that even an elderly person could probably manage a few minutes on it without breaking a sweat. It was that slow. She walked at a leisurely pace on the machine, her large, sparkling eyes frequently drifting towards Ethan beside her. They say a focused man is the most attractive. Right now, Ethan was completely absorbed in his run. His total concentration held a strange sort of allure. As Jessica watched, she found herself captivated, her gaze becoming somewhat infatuated. He looked so good, good from every angle. In her eyes, Ethan was currently perfect, handsome from every single perspective, 360 degrees of flawless. Especially as he ran and beads of sweat gradually appeared, carrying the faint scent of his exertion. It somehow made him seem even more masculine. The air itself seemed thick with male pheromones. For Jessica, this only added to his appeal. Jessica eventually just turned off her treadmill and stood there. Resting her cheek on one hand, she watched Ethan with rapt attention, completely engrossed.